for the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all-new series brought to you by Evolution Sim Racing on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right ladies and gentlemen, with the dust having only recently settled from our wonderful European GT Championship, we are back for another Sunday series. And well, we heard your call, you absolutely loved multi-class racing, and we decided to do something a little bit different from the norm. GT3s are always popular of course on iRacing, indeed on any simulator platform, but what about the machines they replace as of 2024 in the ACO and of course the World Endurance Championship? Did I hear GTEs? That's right, we are going to be combining GTEs and GT3 machines in a team-focused championship here with the introduction of the inaugural Evolution Sim Racing America's GT Challenge Championship for 2025 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC. And this series of course sponsored by Trophy AI in collaboration with SimCoach. A big thank you to them for being with us, and well, without further ado, we are here today for the pre-season event. Playing host for our pre-season event is Laguna Seca Raceway, located in the US state of California, spanning the best part of 2.3 miles, alternatively 3.6 kilometers, depending on your preference and nomenclature. This is a circuit which is typically associated with one rather dusty corner sequence, the corkscrew. But beyond that and the roller coaster ride it presents, there are 11 corners in total, most of them being late apexes, and a naturally narrow road racing surface mean that this circuit is challenging for multi-class racing year in, year out, whether on the simulator, alternatively in the real world. But the one thing that's certain is the corners come fast, and with it the battles come thick and fast too, as we get ready to bring you this pre-season event and set the scene for the season opener in 2 weeks' time. In the commentary booth you have myself, Paul Walsh, and I'm joined by none other than the very talented Dara Thacker. Good evening to you, Dara, and well, how excited are you for this?
Yeah, it's going to be a great season, isn't it? Good to get it going in a pre-season race out. It's what is going to be a difficult circuit. It's going to be an interesting way, I think, to get us started and into this new season. Of course, slightly different teams, slightly different drivers are coming into this off the back of the European GT Championship, and of course, vastly different calendar with, of course, none of the tracks returning. European and Americans, of course, are not going to have any of the same tracks. So it's going to be an interesting, I think, championship. And to get it started tonight in these kind of conditions, it's going to give us a couple of good ideas, but can leave a lot of doors open for for the next race in a couple of weeks.
Oh, 100%. And, well, we actually hit the spot straight on there with regards to our schedule. In fact, let's talk a little bit about our season because, of course, it's the 3rd of August today, and this is going to take us all the way up to 4 days before Christmas Day. Indeed, I'd argue that Christmas has come early if you're a GT3 or a GTE fan, but there it is. And, well, Dara, I mean, we've got variety here. The big theme, of course, is that we're focused on American continent circuits, whether it be North, Central, or South America. But the theme there, we've got a whole amount of variety, haven't we? And it's not just the circuit venues either, it's also linked for the races.
It is, and of course there's a few 90-minute races sprinkled in there, of course, with Daytona, Sebring. They are classic endurance circuits anyway, so good to get tracks, those tracks a 90-minute race, and then of course Interlagos and Watkins Glen. Interlagos, of course, recently returned to the World Endurance Championship calendar, and so that's going to be an interesting one to have 90 minutes to race around, and Watkins Glen as well to end the season. To have a 90-minute race to finalise our championship standings is going to be a really interesting one, and could keep a lot of drivers on their toes. And of course, with the point system that comes with that, it means we could have more drivers in the hunt by the time we get to that final round of the season. But of course, a lot of interesting circuits and a lot of variation on this calendar.
Oh, 100%. Plenty of variation there, and also variation in terms of the layouts. Indeed, some of you might be eyeing it and thinking, Watkins Glen minus the chicane. That's right, no, the bus stop chicane. And even VIR there in round number 3, the grand course, or the extended course there that brings the infield and the outfield circuits all together. But oh, that's our calendar. What are the prizes that our drivers are competing for then? Well, let's quickly talk about those. And as we can see on screen here, there's 40 personalised driver trophies to be won. And, well, trophies will be won according to the 3 classifications as follows. We're firstly going to have drivers' championships in both the GTEs and the GT3s. Top 10 drivers in each of those classes will be taking home trophies. There are going to be no separation of driver classes within the GTEs or the GT3s. It's purely car class there, as otherwise we'd be giving away so many trophies in the end, and indeed we'd be losing the focus on what this championship is all about, because yes, we want to see great individual driver performances, but we've also got teams championships, and all drivers in the top 5 teams, whether they be the pro classification teams or the prime classification teams, they'll be taking home trophies as well. But Dara, of course, it's not about if you're teamed up with just any old driver. Each team here is going to consist of a GT3 and a GTE driver as well, so it means it's going to be a bit of a challenge, something that's different to our drivers, because they're probably used to the fact that normally they just partner up in the same car class and share knowledge.
Yeah, well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? But we saw it in the European GT Championship. There were some different cars. There were some different dynamics within the teams that really enabled it to be a really good season. And a lot of different drivers getting themselves involved in the Teams Championship that weren't necessarily involved in the Drivers' Championship, and vice versa. So the focus is going to change driver to driver. But yeah, so many prizes to be won means that the drivers are going to keep coming back week after week, hopefully.
Oh, 100%. And speaking of drivers, we need drivers to make a season, and here are our GTE Championship drivers. We're not going to go through all of them, as otherwise we could tell you a story about each and every one. Many of these will be familiar names as they take an unfamiliar step to move their way into GTE machinery, including the likes of Hayden Phoenix Miller, for example, for Phoenix Racing Blue. You can see there on the top left of your screen, Ewan Stitchberry, a big GTE fan for DXT Motorsports by ORA. We've also got on the right-hand side of the table there some lower iRacing drivers, but let's not forget about them, including Tiago Reza for 9 Pegasus Panthera, and we also do see there Rob Mackay for Dexterous Motorsport Zemex. But there's also plenty of new names here, including the likes of Niels Kula for Axis Sport Fire, and also there we do see, well, the other new names in the form of Rob Edgell for Pandaspec Motorsports Blue. But Dara, plenty of new names and also some familiar names in GTEs, but as we come onto the GT3 list, meanwhile, I mean, it doesn't stop there. Taking a look at the very top as well, Yannis Albert, our highest I-rating driver in the GT3s. I mean, he's going to be one of the big favourites here, surely, for the GT3s.
Well, he won the last 8 races in the European GT Championship, so I think you'd argue that he is definitely going to be the favourite if he's able to turn up every single week. Of course, he was run pretty close to that, but I don't necessarily think anybody's going to be able to beat him if he's here every single time. William Humphrey, of course, was in the GT4s for the European GT Championship and won that title, so he's going in the GT3s here, and it's going to be an interesting battle, I think. There's no doubt about that, between a few of these drivers who are well known in the series, but also a few drivers who are newer, maybe looking to upset the favourites. You know, Ale Torres has not been around the ESR paddock too long, and so could be one to watch throughout the rest of the season.
Oh, indeed. So plenty of familiar faces and new ones as well. And in terms of the teams, and if you're sat there right now thinking, okay, how exactly do the teams break down? Well, we've got the pro teams. These are driver pairings, GTE and GT3, whereby their combined iRating average is above 4,000. In fact, it's not an average, it's a combined total there, as otherwise we've seen Inosis Esports, they have two drivers of over what would be 10,000 iRating, or at least one with an exceptional iRating and the other the lower. So it's the additive iRatings of our drivers there. So that's how your pro teams are formed. And well, you'll notice there we do have a slot available because there's only 14 pro teams at the moment. And we are hopeful perhaps we'll see a 15th team make its way onto the grid. Or would it be a 16th team in the Pro-Am class? Because we do have currently 58 out of 60 potential sign-ups of drivers. But indeed, we do need these GTE and GT3 teams out there. And it's great to see so many drivers in all different teams. And we have got an absolutely fiery championship ahead. Now, just as qualifying is about to get underway in the background, of course, we can't see it quite at the moment. Just a quick regaling of the rules. And indeed, if you want to go into the rules in full detail, you can take a screenshot or pause the broadcast right now. But as we alluded to earlier, we've got a standard 60-minute race, of which you are going to see that today, as we understand it. And qualifying has just started, a 20-minute lone qualifying session, 4 laps in total. And we also do have 90-minute rounds, which are much the same, but more points on the cards. And on top of that as well, 90 minutes of racing. But Dara, I think enough talk about what is our rules and regulations. Indeed, I think we need to head straight to our circuit because qualifying is just about to get underway. And well, without further ado, we're going to be seeing our drivers now take to the circuit in full force for the first time. I mean, it's a pre-season event, but surely they're going to want to lay down some markers here in the opening event of the season.
Yeah, I think this is a good chance for drivers to kind of put their head above the pulpit, just show everyone else what they are able to do, and especially in these GTEs, which we haven't really seen much in the ESR. We often see a change in a hierarchy of drivers between GT3s and GT4s, and even when we had the TCRs a few months ago. So with the introduction of these GTEs, I think it's a chance for some drivers to maybe show that this is a car that suits their driving style a little bit more and put themselves into a position where drivers are going to be more wary of them on the circuit than they may otherwise be if this was a GT3 or a GT4 race. So, I think a lot to be said, really, about what the drivers can do tonight. But, again, it's just a pre-season race, isn't it? This is a chance where drivers, they can sandbag, they can do whatever they want. It's not going to matter by the time we get to round 1 in a couple of weeks. And so this is just to get their eye in. It'll be interesting to see how each driver plays it individually.
Oh, 100% with you on that. And well, we just take a pause there to say hello to a number of you in the YouTube chat, including Matt Bacon, who you'll see out there right now in the 114 Sim Coach Corvette, the C8 RGTE. I'm going to get those mixed up, aren't I, over the course of the season. The C8 RGT and then the Z06 GT3, which are two entirely different cars, even though they're both based on the Stingray Road production car, or what is known as the C8. We also do say hello to Crofty there, who says hello from car 113, and that being in reference, I believe, to Matthew Croft, who we see here in the BMW M4 GT3. We also say hello to Andrew Fellows, to Adam Watson, and also there to Taito Nation. And well, I can imagine there's plenty of you in the chat right now. And if you are there and you haven't said hi, don't be shy, feel free to say hi. Darren and I don't bite in the commentary booth. The only biting you're going to be seeing here over the course of this season will be brakes, particularly, and we haven't really talked about this, have we, Darren? The difference between GT3s and GTEs, and why GTEs are a bit of a step up, you could say, in terms of driver skill, because the one difference, as we just find Andre Montine having a bit of an excursion, is these GT machines, minus the change in air and everything, no ABS. And that's going to be something that our drivers will need to get used to.
Yeah, and they're going to have to adapt accordingly, and that's not quite how to do it, off the road and into the gravel. But yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult for the drivers to adjust to new machinery. But again, they may feel more at home in these cars than they would in a GT3 or a GT4. We just don't really know what the hierarchy is going to be just yet. This qualifying session is going to go a long way to showing us that, and the first lap times, hopefully, will be coming in soon to give us that first indication.
Oh, 100%. And speaking of those first lap times, well, Thomas Pugh for Axis SimSport Ice, I think in fact Fire, makes his way towards the timeline. And well, he was the fastest in the final practice warm-up, if my memory serves me correctly. And well, he goes the initial fastest there of the GTEs, were 1 minute 18.907. And we'll roll his way around right now. In terms of balanced performance, these GT machines are normally pretty close together. However, the one thing that has been observed over the last couple of seasons in the iRacing officials is that for some reason at Laguna Seca, the one car by the BMW M8, which is front-engine rear-wheel drive, so it's natively going to understeer more than it wants to oversteer. It seems to be very strong at this circuit beyond all other machines, albeit any other cornering circuit, it seems to struggle. A bit of an odd one there from iRacing, but so be it. But, well, we say about Thomas Pugh dominating the way, and Sonny Graham Wildman there says, hold on a second, because that Ford GT, well, he puts it up their provisional pole immediately, so some quick times coming in already. But like you say, Darryl, I think all the drivers here, it's going to be posturing, there could be sandbagging, there could be anything in between. I mean, if you were on the grid with the drivers, would you come into this event thinking to yourself, you know what, I want to lay down a marker, or should I hold 10% in reserve just to not reveal my true hand?
I don't see why you would go flat out in this session, to be honest, because there's absolutely nothing to gain from it, is there? And this is a difficult circuit as well to master. I would just try and play it a little bit safe, and maybe push hard. Maybe just try and get used to the car a bit more. But you can do that in individual sessions. So, yeah, interesting to see how some drivers play it. Clearly, the likes of Thomas Pugh are going for it because he's gone fastest, 18.2, only 100th faster than Graham Wildman. But that's not the right line for Thomas, so he's not going to be improving on that this time as he runs through the opening corner slightly too wide. But yeah, even if this is a pre-season race, the two pole margins combined currently equal about 1/4 of a second. So not holding up too much, it seems.
Oh, indeed. Well, right now, fine margins there. And we talked a lot about our GTs. What about our GT3s? Well, the fastest driver out there at the moment, as he tries to improve and doesn't quite, is none other than Sigurd Christopher Wormsler, as the Danishman makes his way down towards the Andretti hairpin of turn 2. But as he roars his way around in that McLaren, well, this McLaren does go strong, typically on lower apex speed corner circuits. And Laguna Seca being no exception here as he roars his way on out. And coincidentally, he's only 18 thousandths faster than none other than Pedro Luis da Silva. So a bit of symmetry there in the GT3s and the GTs. But further on down, intriguingly, well, car variety definitely is plentiful in both our classes. But we've got some names here in the Fords, particularly the Ford Mustang, such as Jonas Larsson. And well, the Fords might be doing well in GTE, but I think the Fords are having a bit of difficulty here in qualifying for the GT3s.
Yeah, it looks like that they're not necessarily the car that you want to be in, particularly at this circuit. The Mustang not performing terribly well, with Larson and Malnarich a little bit further down the order than they'd otherwise like. McLaren's interesting enough, doing seemingly well at the top of the tree, but again, it's so early on to tell, isn't it? You know, this is the first qualifying session of pre-season, and you can see the track either ramping up or drivers ramping up their own laps. Ludbrook went fastest, then Jennings went fastest. Now Pedro Luis da Silva's gone fastest with the 21.2 in that GT3 class. So clearly there's some evolution to come, and maybe we might see a few more names jump up the order there.
100%. And speaking of the order, for those curious in terms of how will we be setting the grid after this qualifying session, there will be class separation where the GTEs will start ahead of the GT3s, and there will be a starting gap, I believe, of 10 seconds between the two classes. Now, it's not to rule out the fact that the faster GT3 drivers could end up treading on the toes of the slower GTE drivers, and as we do show the overall positions for our 31 drivers who set lap time so far, we do have a grand total of 39 drivers attending today. Well, there is the risk, Darryl, that we might see a couple of GT3s step on the toes of the GTEs. I mean, normally we'd expect the GTs to lap the GT3s over time, but it could lead to some very interesting dynamics because, of course, the GTs have got the greater top speed, and also they've got, in theory, the greater cornering speeds. But I think our GT3 drivers will want to give them a little bit of a challenge, particularly under braking.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting factor, and I think this is going to just, if anything, be the best practice for the drivers in both classes to kind of get a sense of what it's like to race with the other class. It's not really about racing with others; they can do that whenever they really want. It's not really about trying to find pace; they can do that on their own in an individual session. I feel like tonight's going to be more valuable for the drivers in picking up that experience in terms of racing with the other classes and being able to see what they do, see how they act, and maybe, you know, get yourself into a good position to go into the first race of the season almost knowing what to expect, knowing how to approach some of these more difficult parts of the championship. And so that's going to be really valuable for the drivers to do tonight. The difference in lap time clearly isn't very big, as we've touched upon, only about 3 seconds between the fastest laps at the moment, and it means that if you're towards the back of the GTE class, you're barely faster than the leading GT3, so there's also that risk of falling behind the GT3s and then struggling to make your way through.
Oh, 100%. If you end up falling behind them, trying to nudge your way through, I think some elbows may have to come out there, as we see another lap being delivered by Martin Kenyon in the number 3 at Ferrari 488 GTE. When he's way through, does improve to a 19.614, finds an extra tenth or two on his previous best, but no more than that, as he still sits in 8th place of the GTEs, and well, a little bit behind there, Jesse Pulkikainen, and I believe that's how you pronounce the Finnish driver's surname. If not, I do apologise, Jesse. I'm sure you'll correct me afterwards. As he roars his way out of turn number 4, using all the track width and a bit more, but that's an invalidated lap, and that's a quick sign of foot brakes on. It's time to tow to the pits, but that was his last flying lap.
It was, and it will have to see who can try and improve around him. Scotland, that wasn't necessarily the best line through the corkscrew, as he will work his way now down in towards the final couple of corners of the lap. Andy Chell could be on an improved run right towards the back of the field in the GTEs at the moment, and he does improve, but it's not going to improve his position. Stays 19th, but others struggling to improve at the moment. Ashley Brooks may do so, but you know, it looks like those green sectors at the moment are few and far between for the drivers.
Oh, indeed. And while all the drivers come into their final flying laps, well, some have still got the best part of 6 minutes to go, and a lot of our GT3 drivers, intriguingly, opt in to go a bit late in this qualifying session. One GTE just finished his final lap. It's none other than head honcho Evolution Sim Racing. James Bostock heads towards the line. I do believe he'll be jumping into the commentary booth every so often this season, but he comes on through, and I believe this might be his first major exposure to the GTs. Not bad from James, to be fair. Credit where it's due. 12th place, 1.8 seconds off the fastest man out there, who has proven to be Graham Wildmon. But I think Bostock just getting to terms with the Porsche 911 RSR as he brings it to a halt. Ewan Stitchby, meanwhile, he doesn't get the memo to tow to the pits. He decides he wants to do it the hard way, go all the way around. But he looks happy there. 3rd place, highest place Ferrari, and, well, half a second off of the overall pole time, but a good session for him.
Yeah, good session, and good to see him doing well in these cars, and good to see him being able to be quite competitive in this session. It has been quite tightly compact. That's not what I was trying to say, but we'll run with it anyway. We've got Ashley Brooks looking to try and improve on a lap, but he's maybe not going to be improving by the end of this, and it won't be indeed. Jim Fox is another driver who might look to improve, but it's not looking like it's trending that way at the moment, and we can see him going through the final couple of corners, but the sector times aren't going in his favour. And it's difficult to see where we're going to see too many more improvements in the lap times. It looks like Graham Wilpon and Pedro Luis Silva looking pretty good for their positions right now.
Oh, indeed. Looks like everything's secured. And I can see there in the YouTube chat a lot of fans there for our GT pole man of Graham Wildmon. As we give a shout out to Gisley McMattison and also to Nolan Burke. And we will get some onboard footage of our drivers when we do go racing. But I think we are now only a couple of drivers away from completing the session. It is down to our GT3s as Dean Sheesby heads towards the line to go on to his final flying lap. What's he going to do? He jumped up to 15th in the GT3 category, and the Moonshiners Racing Club driver, at least for now, Dara, I mean, he's been making waves in the Premier class over the course of the current GT3 Championship season, but something tells me here, with a much more expanded GT3 grid, he'll be feeling as though today, you know, he's just got to see where he fits in amongst the bigger picture, because he has been ferocious in the GT3 Championship, but it's a much bigger pool of fish here.
But also, this is just the one tier, the one split, of course. There isn't a secondary split like we have on a Thursday night in the GT3s, and so we do have a little bit more of a disparity in terms of who we're seeing racing. So we may see a bit of a stretching out in terms of the pace than we would otherwise see. However, these guys still know each other quite well. I think they'll be able to judge where their pace will really lie, particularly off the opening couple of races. But we've still got a lot, I think, to really find out about these drivers and find out about this series in terms of how they're going to race with each other. And, of course, as we've touched upon, elements like that lapping, elements like the difficulties that we may see with drivers getting used to a new car. So there's still lots of unanswered questions. But I think the sentiment you were saying was right there, Paul.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of new names for Dean and company to get familiar with, Rhys Saunders here, a driver who I've had the pleasure of covering for multiple years in different racing series on iRacing. And tell you one thing, whether he's been with Team Year 1 or Altitude at 3M Esports, he's always been a highly competitive driver. As he comes to line purple in the final subsector, where he crosses that line, he was 8th. He's going to stay 8th, but I think for Rhys, we're not going to see the true pace out of him until Daytona in 2 weeks' time. Because he's one of those drivers, when he gets the bit between his teeth, he doesn't let it go. But like we were saying earlier, so many drivers here right now sounding things out, and I think using this as a bit more of a knowledge-filling session today in terms of what it's like to be on the same tarmac as a GT3 machine and a GTE from the different perspectives of our drivers. But qualifying is effectively now complete, ladies and gentlemen, as Matthew Croft makes his way to line. He will put in the final lap of this session. Or is it going to be from Matthew Croft? I don't think it's going to be an improvement. No, he's going to be staying 12th there of the GT3s, but that is the closure of this qualifying session, and we are now only 1.5 minutes away from going to the grid for our pre-season race. And Dara, one other thing that our drivers have to think about, and we were talking about this in the build-up to today's show, is the fact that on iRacing, we've got pit stops in this series, of course. GT3s, they can take fuel and change tyres. GTEs, they have to do it one by one. They have to take the fuel first and then change the tyres, or vice versa. I always forget which way it is, but that makes strategy a little bit different for the GTEs because you really do have to use your tyres to the maximum possible effect.
You do, and it's going to mean that we're going to see some different strategy options to what we saw in the European GT Championship, which is never a bad thing. Keeps us on our toes up here in the commentary box, but it does mean that there is going to have to be some, well, quite a lot of thought process for the drivers in how they go about conducting their strategy, putting together their races. And again, this race is just to kind of get their eye and is to see what that really looks like in comparison to everyone else, see what other people are doing, see how they try and manage your strategy, because this is the best chance to see those kinds of things and to really understand how you're going to try to work your way through the season and, of course, individual races in the best way possible. But it's not far away, though, is it? Because qualifying's about to end.
100%. And looking at overall time and tell there, a perfect separation of the GTEs ahead of the GT3s by only, I believe, a hundredth there, from Andy Chell, the lowest placed of our GTE drivers, to our pole sitter in the GT3s of Pedro Luis da Silva. And well, that's going to make things very interesting there when we do go green flag racing. But qualifying is complete. It's time to head to the grid, and very shortly we will walk you through that grid here for the pre-season event at Laguna Seca. And in fact, I think the grid is here as it comes up on screen. Let's take you through it then. And it is Graham Wildemon who takes pole position for the GTEs and overall for Sawyer Boys Racing. He'll be joined on the front rider grid by Thomas Pugh for Axis Simsport Lightning. And well, Lightning doesn't strike twice because it's away to his teammate. And then Ewan Stitchbury will line up in third place for DXT Motorsports by ORA. Alongside him on row number 2 will be Jaden Scotton, the Flatline Racing ex-driver there, looking to make his mark, with Hayden Phoenix starting in 5th place. Hayden Phoenix Miller, I should say, its full name, for Phoenix Racing Blue, ahead of Tim Perry, who lines up in 6th place. We carry on the GT theme with Jesse Pulkakainen, who starts in 7th for Pandaspec Motorsports Green. He'll be ahead of Martin Kenyon for Dexterous Motorsports Quem. And then we have round off your top 10, Rob Edgell for Pandaspec Motorsports Blue, and Justin Knoll for SJS Racing. That's your top 10. Starting 11th is Matthew Bacon for SimCoach, ahead of James Bostock for GPX Simsport Onyx. And then we have Samuel Clark starting 13th place for Moonshiners Racing Club, ahead of Robin Aston for GPX Simsport Xenon. Then we have Thiago Reza in the 9 Pegasus Panthera Brazilian Machine. He starts in 15th, ahead of Englishman Jim Fox for Phoenix Racing Red. Within 17th place, Andre Montaigne, the Axis Simsport Ice driver there, line up on the the penultimate row of the grid for the GTEs, ahead of Pete Piver for LS Racing. And last our GTE drivers, Andy Chell for QuakeMS Motorsport, he starts 19th. But Dara, over to you for the GT3 order, and I think we start with one who just scraped into the top 20.
Pedro Luis da Silva is the fastest of our GT3s, and of course we'll see what he can do from the front of the field. And then we look back to P2 and 3. Look a little bit offset, of course, because of the fact that we're seeing the pole driver on the right-hand side of our screen rather than our left. But Archie Williams will be second, and Chris Jennings will be third in class as we look our way further down to Seca Christopher Walmsley in 23rd, which will be fourth in class, ahead of Grant Miller. Those two will be looking to move forward, I'm sure, off of the start. Dane Jonas Larson, the second of the Danes, will start in 6th, ahead of James Hayworth in 7th, with Reece Saunders alongside him on row number 4. Ashley Brooks and John Ebersol driving in his home race, John Ebersol on row number 5 in class, with John Lubrook and Matthew Croft for GPX Simsport Xenon and for Axis Simsport Ice on row 6. Lucas Finco and Dean Tyler, an all-American row 7. And of Dean Cheeseby, who's kind of in the midst of the Americans. We've got Travis De Flumer and John Malnerich, I should say, just in behind. Robin Paunia and Ale Torres will be a little bit further back. Torres, I don't think, set a lap time in qualifying which is why he is in P19 in class. We'll see what the Spaniard can do. I think that's all the drivers that we have tonight, isn't it, Paul? Slightly smaller grid than we're likely to see, but it's going to give these guys a bit of a leg up, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Ale Torres there, potentially starting from the pit lane, because he hasn't made his way to the grid. If not, there might be a technical issue with the car, and if so, that's unfortunate, but sometimes that's the way it goes. But then again, that's why we have these pre-season events, to try and iron out the technical faults before we do go green flag racing, where the points truly matter. But already we can see that 10-second gap that has been created by our GT3 pole sitter of Luis da Silva, and the GTEs making their way very quickly around behind the pace car. But the GT3 tyre spec, of course, being one that's much more aggressive. You can get the tyre temperature very quickly compared to the GT3s. We haven't seen the new tyre model arrive with the GTEs as of yet, so that's also going to be something that's going to be a bit different. In fact, the GT3 machines are going to need at least 3-4 laps to get into the optimum zone. GTEs, meanwhile, they will be able to switch it on within the first 2 laps, of course, barring any major mistakes. But they all go all the way around. A bit further back there, you can see our GT3 drivers. They trickle the way along, but now we're only a couple of quarters away, and, well, very shortly, it is going to be to Graham Wildemon to take us green flag racing.
Yeah, here we go then. It's going to be a really exciting start. I think Graham Wildemon knows exactly what he needs to do to get this off the line well. Thomas Pugh is going to look to go around the outside, but then if you're Jason Scott, this is a good chance to maybe make a move with that double apex left-hander to kick off the lap, to kick off the season, Paul.
Indeed, well, they come out of the final corner, and now we await the lights.
Here we go then, up towards the line. We will see an hour on the clock, and then we'll see if Graham Wildemon is going to be able to hold on to this lead. We are racing already as we cross the start-finish line. It's a really, really poor start in the end then from Jayden Scotton, who's being swamped towards turn 1. Jan Stitchbury's got his way through towards the opening turn, with Hayden Phoenix looking to go up the inside as well. He's just about going to get the inside line and should get that position. The Ferrari having to use the power on the outside to try and keep his foot in. Stitchbury inside at turn 3. That'll be done for him, and he's up into P2. Good start at the front of the GTE class. Meanwhile, Pedro Luis da Silva's had a good start at the front of the GT3s. You can see behind they're battling, but he's been able to get away from all of the carnage, all of the chaos, and he leads as they make their way through the opening sector.
Oh, indeed they do, as James Howarth had a nightmare start by comparison. We briefly saw him make a stage exit right coming out of the Andretti hairpin. Not quite sure what's happened to him, but great start from Luis da Silva, just breaking away, timing it to perfection. But here comes Reece Saunders looking around the outside of Jonas Larsson as they make the way into the cambered left-hander at turn number 5, where he's going to commit to the outside line. That is bravery early on in that BMW, and he's made it count. And, well, that's another place made there by Saunders, already up 3 places in his class. He is making haste up the road, however. We've had a bit of a nightmare start for a couple of GT drivers. Thomas Pugh, Darrett, you were saying about him earlier, he's continued to fall down, but I think now he's starting to get things under control, as meanwhile Justin Noah and Martin Kenyon, they're getting quite familiar with each other here. Yeah,
they really are, as they work our way towards the end of the opening lap of the race. And it's been a bit of a difficult start for a couple of drivers. Leaders have been able to get away towards the front of the field, but a couple of drivers clearly getting themselves involved in a little bit of carnage and chaos. Jayden Scott's got a big gap back to Thomas Pugh, but he's going to have a gap back now to Perry, because he's now into the top 4. Good move from the BMW driver with all of the colours over that livery. It's resplendent in these conditions, but they will have a big gap back to that battle led by Thomas Pugh and Noel and Kenyon as well. So big gaps early on, and you can see on the track map as well in the GT3s actually that, you know, as you get towards the mid-pack, some wide gaps opening up. You've got a train of about 6 or 7 towards the front, and then pretty much nobody for the next 5-6 seconds.
Oh, indeed, and that train being led at the moment by Luis da Silva. You can see your GT3 leader here. He does have the best part of 1.2 seconds to Christopher Wormsley, and then it's Archie Williams, Chris Jennings, and Reece Saunders with Jonas Larsson and John Ebersole all trying to creep into that long train at the moment as they all work their way through the race, albeit we've had a bit of drama, and that is Robin Aston, who's gone round, coming out to turn number 6. Well, he's buried himself in the gravel there. I'm not quite sure how he's made that journey, but the wonderful thing is, of course, we do have some replays which will be coming up in due course, and we'll get a recap of those shortly as Aston does rejoin. But further back, John Ludbrook chasing after Travis Duflamer, and from there in the Corvette runs a bit wide, and under braking, Ludbrook says, okay, oh, that's big contact between the two of them, and both go scurrying across. I think that might have been a misanticipation of braking there. Darragh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's the first incident that we're seeing at this corkscrew. It will not be the last. Difficult to see exactly from that angle exactly who would be apportioned the blame there, but I think it's definitely what we're going to end up seeing a few times over the course of this race, with drivers misjudging it into the corkscrew, getting it wrong, and then we're seeing contact and chaos on the exit ensuing. So drivers going to have to be trying to avoid that as we work our way throughout this race, but you're never too far away from contact here at Laguna Seca. Narrow circuit, there's barely any runoff to speak of at any corner, and the curbs aren't particularly helpful either, so I think we're going to be seeing quite a bit of that over the course of the race.
Oh, 100% we will do. Well, with the moments we've had so far, we're going to take a look back at some open lap instants and replays, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen, starting off with what went wrong for James Howarth. So this was coming down into the Andretti hairpin, and well, in the Ford Mustang there, gets the power down, and as he does, I think he was tapped there by the Mercedes AMG. I think that might have been the AMG of none other than Ashley Brooks, who subsequently ended up in a bit of drama. So Howarth had a big moment. Then we did have this for Thomas Pugh only a few moments later, and while Pugh was making his way all the way up towards the corkscrew, he'd already had a dismal start to the race, lost 4 places, went all in the brakes, and that's not how you take the corkscrew. But he got it stopped well in time, so good on him, albeit everyone had to then fan their way around. That front right brake right now is going to be absolutely scalding hot, given the fact he's put it through a heat cycle very aggressively. This also happened to Grant Miller on the open lap, one of our GT3 drivers, making his way through turn number 6, and takes the apex curve there, and in the end has to slam the brakes on. Oh, goodness me, and well, nobody else behind getting the memo of the wayward car in front, and that's what led to a bit of drama. Ashley Brooks and Robin Powney being caught up in that, and well, this was then the Robin Aston incident, only a lap later at the same corner. And well, for Robin Aston here, what exactly went wrong? Took a lot of curb, the rear of the car let go, dipped the right tyre onto the gravel, and by then he became a passenger in his own car. So a bit of drama on the opening, a couple of laps down, but now things starting to settle down a little bit, and we're starting to see some brilliant racing, albeit right at the front of the field. Graham Wildemont right now, absolutely flying away here, 2.8 seconds clear, and he is opening that gap out lap after lap.
Yeah, it's not coming down at all, is it? Graham Wildman looking very secure at the lead, in the lead of this race. Only about 5 minutes have gone, but nearly, well, actually, in fact, over 3 seconds of a margin is his advantage over Jan Stitchbury. You've then got Phoenix just in behind, who's keeping a track with Stitchbury. He's not allowing him to get too far away at the moment, but they are very much in a race on their own, because there's that big gap then to Jaden Scotland and Tyler Perry for 4th and 5th. So couple of little groups forming, a couple of little duos in the early stages here, but to our point earlier about GT3s and GTEs, the slower GTEs and the quicker GT3s maybe being relatively close on pace, you can see on that track map down towards turn 1 and the bottom right of that track map there's a bit of a mix of the GTEs and the GT3s. Pedro Luis de Silva is kind of in the midst of the battle that involves the likes of James Bostock, Pete Paeva and Andre Muntian in there, so there is clearly a closeness in the pace, and these GTEs may have to speed up a bit over the course of the season if they want to avoid being swallowed by some of the GT3s earlier on in the races.
Oh, 100%. And well, the man leading that trio of GTEs, we do see a step aside there for one of the drivers. Well, there, oh, goodness me, that's a little bit of negotiation. It's Andre Montaigne has to go round the outside there of a wounded machiner, John Lebrook, who is a lap down in the GT3 category, it should be pointed out. So therefore, he's stepping off the throttle. But now, of course, he's going to be a bit of a thorn in the side of his fellow GPX machine, as piloted by Pedro Luis de Silva, the GT3 leader. But I'm sure right now that both drivers will be aware of the fact that obeying blue flags on the run up the Rahul Straight in towards corkscrew can be very difficult, so they'll work it out at some point, perhaps through a rainy curve here coming down from turn number 9. But time will be taken for that. But running away and around, and well, to the fact that we do have these combined packs of cars, as we do see a bit of a run wide there from Pedro Luis de Silva. He's not pulling away at the moment. Yes, he's got some traffic, Dara, but I mean, looking all the way back to Jonas Larsson here in 6th place for our GT3s. Right now, this 6-car pack, they're all staying comfortably within reach of each other, and also car variety. 2 McLarens, 2 Porsches, a BMW and a Ford. Not perhaps what we would have expected here.
No, not necessarily, but that's just kind of how it's gone so far. And it's going to be a clear difference from what we've seen before, and there's a clear difference between the GTs and the GT3s, which manufacturers are emerging towards the front as well. But it's nice to see a bit of variation, because you don't often see that every single race with lots of variation near the front. You can sometimes get quite a monotone look at the manufacturers at the top, with only a couple, 1 or 2 dominating the field. But it's good to see a bit of a mix, and that we don't really have a clear favourite going into this season, because it means that the drivers are going to be more open with their choices, aren't they?
Oh, 100%. But speaking of openness here, as that is a Corvette GTE that's being busted wide open in terms of its front bumper. Big lock up there from none other than James Bostock, who sipes his way out the inside. So Bostock having to make some progress. But I think Matthew Bacon there's had something go very wrong. And well, I don't think we're able to get a replay. I haven't got anything here on our data to say he's been involved in some sort of incident, but those front bumpers don't normally come like that on the Corvette. And we can see there, well, Pete Piver says to try and go around the outside in the 111. I think that's a bit opportunistic, Darren. I don't know about your thoughts there, but I think for Pete, he might have just been a bit enthusiastic as he goes up the inside now, down towards the hairpin.
Yeah, it's optimistic, let's say, but let's see how it's going to pan out from here. Of course, he's got the position now. That last lap round actually was 3.5 seconds faster than Bacon, so there clearly could be a bit of an advantage there regardless, but we will come back to that at some stage. We have to look at Thomas Pugh making the move, the active driver, to the inside of Noel, and he gets that one done on the run up towards the corkscrew. Difficult corner to get that done, and this is a track that a lot of moves are difficult to get done. It's been impressive to see him get it completed there.
Oh, 100%. Well, from impressive moves being made by Thomas Pugh, we've got an impressive battle grind here as we jump on board with Hayden Phoenix Miller, the Phoenix Racing blue driver, who looks up the inside there. A quick squeeze into the final quarter versus Ewan Stitchbury. Our race leader of Graham Wilderman has absolutely booked his ticket and decided to fly out of here. He's leaving Monterey County as quickly as he's arrived. But meanwhile, this battle for second place right now really building in the battle between the Ferrari of Stitchbury and the Corvette of Phoenix Miller. But through the Andretti hairpin they go. And as they do, for those that sat there right now wondering, okay, we talked a little bit about car variety, but what's the theme in GTE? Well, the most popular cars are the Corvette and the Porsche. We won't go into exactly why at the moment, but in terms of how these two cars match up, Ewan Stitchbury in the Ferrari has picked a very unpopular car, and the reason it's unpopular is because it's an absolute princess in terms of the way you need to manage it. The Ferrari needs its tyre temperatures to be in a precise window. Keep them there, and you've got race-leading pace. Have them go out of that window, suddenly you lose all the pace. Corvette, meanwhile, you can be very aggressive with this car, and we can see Phoenix Miller going for exactly that as they head up the Rahul Straight. But right now, Stitchbury doing a fantastic job of holding the position here as they make their way around, and Phoenix Miller just has to keep putting that pressure on. But for every step he does, well, I think right now, Ewan Stitchbury just getting an idea of what his rival can throw at him. And we're seeing here, Darryl, the fact that this circuit, not really wide enough for two cars at the most of the times, albeit it's not stopping young Hayden from looking for an opportunity. He looks up the inside into the hairpin, but can't quite find it as this lap comes to an end.
Yeah, let's see if there's any chance for Hayden Miller to try and work his way through up towards the opening turn. It doesn't look likely. There's good power in the back of that Ferrari car, and it's going to see Ian Stitchbury safe once again as they run down in towards the opening Andretti hairpin. 100th between their laps last time by as well. It's not a lot at all to separate those two drivers, and we're seeing, I think, a really interesting tussle between these two, because it doesn't seem that Hayden Miller is too keen or necessarily overly keen to get this move done. Ian Stitchbury, though, not able to pull away. So again, is there an element of just sitting back, not really trying to cause a collision? This is only a pre-season race, so you're not going to get too racy too quickly if you're Hayden Miller. So there's lots of elements here, but clearly we're seeing these two drivers work relatively well together. They're losing time to Wildman, but they're gaining away from pretty much everybody else.
Well, indeed they are, but here they come as they make the rise, and now Miller's going to be on the outside. He thinks about it again, just trying to force Stitchbury to outbrake himself and really probing here. And I can imagine if he did have the proverbial castle prod, he'd be poking left, he'd be poking right, and dead centre. And well, as they make the way on down in towards turn number 10, we look back from the rear of the lead car in this pair, and well, right now the DXT Motorsports by RA cars got a Corvette dancing up the inside of it. There goes Miller for the move. Can he get it absolutely hooked up? Well, he does get a nose ahead, but drag race down. Stitchbury there tries to tuck back in. He's not too happy of how the move was forced on him, but I think Miller would say no, that's fair racing. Over the crest and down they come, but now Miller's going to go defensive here, avoiding the bollards. Onto the brakes, Andretti around the outside. Stitchbury looks, can he get the cut back here in towards the second part of the apex? No, he can't, and it does look as though Hayden Phoenix Miller finally makes second place count in a good time as well, because these two, they've stripped the best part of a second out of each other over the previous lap, and Tim Perry is now not too far behind.
Not at all. Tim Perry is right in the mix here and could start to get involved in this battle for P2. He's dropped Jaden Scotton quite significantly over the last 5 minutes or so. We're not even a quarter of the way into this race yet, but he has been able to get himself maybe into a position to be in contention here, which is going to be really, really quite interesting indeed. Saunders, very quickly in the GT3, has just gone fastest of anybody, 21.6 for him in that number 8 car. He's well and truly in this battle for the lead. The front four pretty much joined at the hip, and Pedro Luis de Silva got away off the start, but he's been dragged back into this.
I wonder, it's a really good spot there, and well, from your keen eyes, Darren, I wonder whether Luis da Silva is perhaps backing off and trying to manage this race, because we saw he had strong enough pace of pole position, but of course one fast lap compared to what will be the best part here, if my mental mathematics is correct, of about 38, 39 laps. It may be more in the space for an hour. Well, you've got to maintain that pace, but I wonder whether perhaps he's deciding, you know what, I'll back it off, protect the tyres, save some fuel, and have a shorter pit stop, because of course overtaking here is so challenging, albeit we have seen drivers do it. But just forcing some dirty air over the front of his rival's cars, particularly Christopher Walmsley behind, well, if he can back everybody up into each other and give himself a bit of a shorter pit stop, surely he's onto a winning combination, because you're right, he's not really broken away. We would expect him to open up a gap because he's got a clear track in front of him. It's not as though he's got traffic to deal with.
No, it's not. And so there's a lot that's I think that's going to go into the thought process here for Pedro Luis da Silva of why he's not able to really pull this gap away too much. Roy Saunders may start to be the one to be aggressive, but again, it could be a long time before we start to see any of these drivers become aggressive. They don't really want to use this pre-season race to have a crash and to not, well, and kind of create a couple of enemies in the paddock. That wouldn't be ideal, but yeah, everybody, just going cautiously to the opening corner. Bit of a moment there for Williams. It's going to open the door for Saunders. He's going to walk straight into it. Williams back up the inside, though, in his Porsche. Should be able to control it through there because of the difficulties of going around the outside at Laguna Seca. And you can see Saunders having to slot into line and through the double right-hander. And Williams making a mistake, just about able to recover from it.
Well, indeed, Williams under a lot of pressure as they head in towards turn number 5, and well, like you say, going around the outside at most corners here at Laguna Seca, you've got to have such a pace advantage to make it happen, as we've had some drama in the GTEs. Tim Perry's had to tow to the pitch due to an incident. That's what we're able to discern, and we will get a replay of that very shortly. But Saunders backing off, and a very mature approach here from Reece Saunders. Normally, once he starts to get involved in the battle, this is not to belittle him, but he does sometimes really get entrenched in the battle, and he won't let it go. But that's what makes him such a lovable character, in the fact he'll fight for every single position, but decides immediately, okay, it's not going to work, I'm not going to throw it away, I will just keep building that pressure. In fact, into the pit lane here, he's decided to pit early. I mean, fuel use at Laguna Seca is normally quite limited, and I think they're running quite a sizable fuel tank, so an undercut this early?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Of course, he's going to be running higher fuel loads for most of the race then, so I'm not too sure why this would be the thought process for Saunders, but hey, maybe he's just going for something completely different, seeing if it works. This being a pre-season race, he's not going to be under pressure to get the points out of it. Inside line now, though, for Croft on Ebersol. He's going to get through, and we're going to see the BMW into the top 6 now. Ebersol not really finding that one too hard. And the Americans' first home race of the season, slipping back to P7 momentarily.
Well, indeed, Wizzy slips back there. We slip back in time and take a quick look at what exactly happened to Tim Perry only moments ago in GTE. Here's the replay, and well, into the final corner, up the inside there of Sheesby in the BMW M4. They power the way along. Sheesby comes across, it would seem, at least that's what the carrying would suggest. And Perry then spun to the wall, and that's the immediate tow to the pit. So I get the feeling a bit of miscommunication there in terms of driving lines and what constitutes a straight line coming out of the corner. A bit of an odd one, that, Dara, but still, from difficulties between two classes drivers, we come back to the very front of the GT3 field, and it does look as though now they are making their way through some of the slower GTEs, including Robin Aston, but Luis da Silva and Christopher Walmsley are still pushing each other on. The two McLarens here still joined at the hip.
Yeah, they are. They are still joined at the hip, and we are seeing that Pedro Luis da Silva is not able to really pull that gap at all. It's been 70 minutes of this race now, and Christopher Wamsler, I will get that right eventually, is just tracking him, isn't he? He's just keeping an eye. He's not forcing the issue. He's not trying to be distracting, not trying to get involved in any of this, but he is just being a bit of a distraction and just making sure that he is known about in this group of cars. So I think for Sigurd here, this could be an interesting one. Do you go for the move? Do you go for an aggressive move just to see if you can pull on Pedro Luis da Silva? Do you just sit and wait? Do you maybe try for an overcut when we get to that point in terms of the pit stop cycle? Because sitting it behind the car in front, you can save a lot more fuel.
Oh, 100% you can save the fuel, but as always, the one question mark is, what is the guy in front doing? Is he saving fuel as well, or are they saving fuel, I should say, not to assume genders, as they pour the way over the rise and onto the brakes. Absolutely gut-wrenching there inside a car to do that, whether it be on the simulator or in person, and making the way down through turn at number 9 through a rainy curve Well, right now, Christopher Wormsler, he's definitely got the fact he's in that dirty out under control. You can see how early he turns into those apexes compared to Luis de Silva. He's just got a real knack for it here, so he's comfortable running behind his rival. But we'll have to see just how far that comfort goes as they head on to another lap. They will complete for the GT3s what will be their 13th tour of the circuits. They're accumulating the laps already, and we're behind Robin Aston in the GTE. I think we're starting to see what we were talking about earlier, Dara. We've got a GTE now that is stuck behind some GT3s, and they're on very similar pace. I think for poor Robin at this point, he's probably thinking to himself, okay, what do I do now exactly?
It's going to be a bit of a confusing one, isn't it, really? However, you've got to try and find a way through. I mean, Robin Aston is going to have to try his best. I know that's far easier said than done, and it sounds like the obvious thing to say, but when you don't necessarily know how you're going to race against other cars or notionally slower cars, it can be really tricky to know exactly how to go about making these moves. Inside line into him, maybe not, and he thinks better of it, and we'll stick him behind for the time being, but all the while he's just shipping time to Andre Muntian, which is not going to be helping him out whatsoever. And you can see him gaining towards the ends of some of these straights, but they're just not long enough here at Laguna Seca to really make use of that.
No, they're definitely not. But meanwhile, speaking of Andre Montaigne, as he roars his way after Andy Chell, I think both these drivers are quite raw to GTE machines and really learning, as we did see in the chat earlier on after qualifying, getting used to the fact that braking in these cars, you have to brake a lot earlier compared to GT3s, and you have no anti-lock braking system or ABS to lean on. And what that means is braking style in these cars, you have to be very gentle at first, but once the brakes are on, you can start to raise that brake pressure. A tiny little lock up there on the front left from Chell, and that's just where he's coming down to the brakes a bit too hard. But over time you get used to it. It's a lot of muscle memory that has to be built here, because in the end you are your own ABS system. As he just cuts a bit loose there coming out of turn number 3, just dipping the rear left tyre to the grass and gravel. And well, I can assure you, ladies and gents, when many think that Laguna Seca is a dust bowl, visit in the springtime and you'll find there's a lot of greenery here. But of course, when the circuit was captured on the simulator, they captured it in the peak of summer, because right now it does look as though it's surrounded by sand. But with all this, another pit stop coming up, Dara, and we do have Martin Kenyon into the pits now, the first GTE driver inside the top 10 to make a trip to the pit lane. We'll have to wait and see what he's going to do with this, as, oh, goodness me, did he miss his pit box? Has he done something completely wrong there? I thought he was trying to come to a stop.
Not too sure at all. It looks like his pit box is further down, so I haven't got a clue. You know, you can make these mistakes in pre-season, everything's going to be absolutely fine, but he's going to drop right towards the back of the order in that Ferrari car, as we see the likes of James Bostock and Fox come through. Andy Shelby next as well. But yeah, interesting strategy. I don't think we're going to be seeing this kind of strategy as we get in towards the season, quite frankly, but that's just how it's worked out so far. In the GTE, yes, I think Andre Muntian's had a bit of an incident. Don't quote me on that, but I think he's dropped back from Robin Aston a touch. And let's see that lap time, 26.5, yeah, 35 flat. So there's been a mistake from Andre Muntian somewhere. I think it was between the final couple of corners there.
Well, good spot there, and we can get a replay of it, and here we go, and we'll take it away, Dara.
Well, let's see then, down in towards the final couple of corners. We've dived through the corkscrew with ease, bit of a step into the grass, well, not to the grass, into the gravel, into the dirt. And there's that rear end going around, and Andre Muntian just about keeping it under control. And then cutting the corner. He's taking as much off of that tarmac as he possibly can, but that won't have helped his lap time out at all. And that's why he's down a minute behind the lead.
Oh, indeed. Well, speaking of the man who's towards the bottom of the GTs, back to the man who's at the very top. He doesn't get much camera time because right now he's really just running the way of it. But still, we are going to show him, because I know there's a big group of fans in the YouTube chat for none other than Graham Wildmon as he roars his way through turn number 6, and we're still maintaining that pace. And in fact, the lap times over the last few laps, to give you an idea of how quick he is going versus Hayden Phoenix Miller. Well, keep in mind, of course, we did have the Miller-Stitchby battle, but Wildmon right now, for the most part, minus when he's encountering traffic, it would seem, he is putting at least 3 to 4 attempts a lap on average over the field. The Ford GT driver right now, absolutely colossal, but he's had enough. He's into the pit lane, and, well, I think doing a little bit of maths here, this is the prime time for many of a GT driver to pit, because Kenyon's pit stop was only 13.6 seconds stationary. I think they are all in the GT's deciding they're not using that much fuel here, so they might as well come in nice and quickly, but it means we have a new race leader overall, and well, now GTE is led by Hayden Phoenix Miller, with Ewan Stitchbury 4 seconds back. So our Corvette driver, Darren, now he's been released behind the Ferrari, he's putting in the pace. He's not quite on the pace of Wildmon, but he's clear of the rest of the field, so in a very happy spot.
He's in a very happy spot, which is a good place to be, getting towards the halfway point in this race. And yeah, again, I know we kind of keep mentioning it, but it's worth pointing out because there is no pressure on the drivers tonight in this race. There's nothing that's riding on this. Once they leave here, everyone's going to realistically forget about it. They may gain the experience, of course, and they may take that with them, but they're not really going to remember the result for too long at all. So just keeping yourself in a happy place, trying to work out what makes the car work nicely, trying to work out how best to approach the the coming races and the coming season. I think is going to be the best thing to come out of this. So to be in a happy place, to be in a nice window, is critical for these guys tonight. Otherwise, they're going to feel like they've wasted some time, and someone's wasted some time on the exit of the corkscrew. I'm not entirely sure who that was. One of the GTEs have gone around. Actually, that's Bacon. Is facing the wrong way. You could see it on the track map, and you could just see him light up on the exit of the corkscrew. As Hayden Miller, who's part of the Phoenix team, comes into the pit lane.
Well, he makes his way in, and it all went wrong for Bacon, and we will try and get a replay of what exactly happened to Matt Bacon shortly, as there he is in the sim coach machine now, getting himself back together. And well, in fact, here's the quick replay to explain what was spotted. And we'll tucked in behind one of our GT3 machines, went on the brakes, rolled the car out of the corner, down for the corkscrew, just took too much of the second apex there, and we'll in the end, the front right side just getting hooked under the curb into the dirt, and with it to the barrier. And we'll keep in mind that is the best part of, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, an 18-meter plunge from apex to apex. It's one of the biggest drops between two corners in the world, and well, just walking around the circuit you'll feel that, let alone in the car. And well, right now Bacon having to pick things back up. It's an easy mistake to make, no matter whether you're in a GTE or a GT3, but falling foul there. As we've also come back to our live pictures, we've got a new GT3 leader in the form of Sigurd Christopher Wamsler. But before we talk about him a bit more, we've got a bit of closer fighting here between a couple of our GT3 drivers, Jesse Pulakainen and Martin Kenyon, pushing each other along. And well, we haven't seen too much fight in the GT3s recently by that top field, but with all the pit stops, it seems as though Kenyon, the man who pitted, was the first to pit, he's now on a charge.
He's on a charge, and let's see how much further he can get up the order. Pulkkinen is going to be the first one to try and overtake if you're Martin Kenyon, and we'll see if he can try and work his way through. Big gap then up towards the likes of Grayton Scott and Thomas Pugh in there, 18 seconds or so as they approach the corkscrew already before we've even got through the long left-hander at turn number 5, but turn number 6 I should say. But this is a really interesting little tussle. Of course, we've got Noel just in behind as well, and with the offset of the pit stops, it really means that it's difficult to say exactly where drivers are at the moment in this race.
Ooh, it runs a bit wide there. Well, that's not the way to take turn number 6. I think Martin Kenyon at that point, Dowie, thinking to himself, okay, carb it down, because he's overdriving a little bit there to carry that much speed.
Just a touch. Just a little bit. He has overdriven, and he has gone around the wrong way. Not gone fully around, of course, but that is not where he needs to be. He's now got Noel right in behind him, ready to pounce and make a move in a minute in that Corvette, but even he's going slightly wide as well. So difficult moments, but we're still not even halfway through this race yet. Lots of time to figure it out.
Or indeed, lots of time to figure it out, as we do say hello to Rhys Saunders there, who says at least it's only a practice race, as he's currently in the pit lane and out the car. I think they're doing a lot of repair work on his BMW M4 GT3, and happy to have you with us, Rhys. And we also do say hello there to Timothy Perry, who says about his instant with a GT3, and so media days are always a bit mad. And well, I can tell you one thing, Tim, you're doing absolutely brilliantly out there and showing great pace, and we look forward to seeing what you can deliver when we do go into the main season in 2 weeks' time at Daytona. But don't be too disheartened, gentlemen. You both put on a great performance, and we look forward to plenty more from you in the weeks to come. But speaking of things right now to come, that is Thomas Pugh right up the inside there of one of our Corvette GTs that's a bit of time down, and I believe that might have been a lap being put on, not Mr. Bacon there, because he was not in the same coloration car. In fact, I think that's one of our GT3 Corvettes, but Thomas Pugh holding up the position, 4th place in GTE, but he has got Jaden Scotton right behind him. And well, from the very white Axis SimSport machine to the very colourful BMW, these two BMW drivers now pushing each other along over the distance as we jump on board with Jaden Scotton. And well, the Flatline Racing X driver here, Dara, I mean, he got close for a brief moment, but not quite close enough at the moment. But it's going to get close now because Ewan Stitchby comes out the pit lane. And well, he falls even further back into the clutches. This has not been a strategy that's worked out. He's in fact fallen back to Ewan Scotton. We've got to fight for third one here in the GTEs.
Yeah, still early pit stops really, but not even halfway through the race yet. Often we see cars go longer than the halfway mark and run that fuel tank dry, but that is not what we have seen so far. This evening, Stitchbury will get to the inside line on that GT3 and will get through, as will Thomas Pugh, so they'll both run through together and actually bring along Jaden Scotton with them as well. So those three drivers are tightly packed for P3, and all of a sudden these guys are going to be, I think, looking at each other and realising that this is their race. These three together are going to be fighting with each other all the way to the end, and how do they play it? That's the key.
Well, if you're in Stitch, but you're going to have to really look after that Ferrari as he makes way a little bit deep coming out the corkscrew there, just trying not to put any steering angle in. BMW drivers, meanwhile, just hanging together here as they make the way down. That GT3, the Corvette they passed, was none other than Dean Tyler, who's running a good race in 7th place in the GT3. As you can see him there in the rather fluorescent blue Corvette, just out of camera shot now, as our battle for 3rd through to 5th of the GT class completes another lap. On to lap number 22. There's still plenty of pace to go between them all. They're all just keeping an eye on each other at the moment. And we've also got Justin Knowles still trying to get a little bit close to Martin Kenyon in the fight for 7th in the GTE class. So there's points still to be grabbed here. Well, just literally brownie points or bragging rights over their rivals. No actual points in the championship because it is a pre-season event. But everybody pushing each other along at this time. And I do wonder, Darryl, the fact we've had our pit stop so early, the more I go through my notes here, I'm wondering whether we might be expecting a second pit stop. So I get the feeling they've pitted way too early. Unless everyone's just deciding, you know what, we're going to get the pit stop done because of the risk of traffic. But if everyone's pitting early, then technically everyone's pitting at the same time as the same would go.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, really? Of course, it's weird because the GT3s and the GT4s in the European GT Championship could run to about the 20-minute mark to go, 40 minutes into the race. So if the GTs are struggling to get it to halfway, then that is going to be a concern for them throughout the season. I would just suppose that it's, well, I'd say it's just the early strategy call, but maybe they are having to be forced into the strategy by the lack of fuel. We are just about to hit the halfway mark, so I think it's going to be interesting. But again, everyone's learning, even us up here in the commentary booth, right, Paul? So we're all learning, we're all going to be able to get a good grasp of what to expect in a couple of weeks' time from this. And if a two-stop is the way to go, do drivers then start thinking about how to commit to a two-stop, or do they start to think whether they can make a one-stop work for them, because that could be really advantageous with the long time in the pit I think the GTs have to serve.
Oh, 100% with you on that. And, well, I think, like you say, we're all learning here. We've all got our notepads out and furiously writing. I do see some question marks in the YouTube chat about Sam Clark, Max Andrews there, as well as Izzy Grimaldi. And where is Sam Clark out of circuit, I hear you ask? Well, Samuel Clark is unfortunately retired from this race due to an earlier incident. And, well, I'm very sorry we didn't get too much footage of Mr. Clark today, but we'll make up for that when we do go race in 2 weeks from now. But meanwhile, from going from the wrong stuff in terms of not covering a driver, we come to the wrong stuff driver in the form of Lucas Finko. And, well, he's making his way around in the number 7 Acura, running 10th in GT3 and chasing after James Howarth and John Ebersole. And, well, right now, Lucas Finko here looking good, following the two American machines in front. And it always gets me, Darryl, because, of course, Acura being the American badge for Honda, the Japanese company, but the NSX, in this guy's at least, being developed by the American arm of Honda. So it is technically an Acura, but some would like to refer to it as a Honda NSX, some refer to it as the Acura, and, well, I always get the two mixed up there. I mean, where do you sit on it? Is it that because it originated from Honda, it should be a Honda, or do you refer to it as an Acura?
Oh, I just go with Acura. That's what it is now, isn't it? Of course, the logo ever slightly different. It's an A, not a H. But I think you've got to go Acura, particularly for this American series. I feel if European, you may have more of a chance of calling it a Honda, but yeah, in the US, Canada, and the couple of other races that we'll do, I think they're going to have to stick with Acura for it. But it's always fun when they change their brands, isn't it? And branding evolves, because it's so easy for us to remember, isn't it, Paul?
Oh,
so easy.
So easy. And I've just had a thought, by the way. I think a lot of our American viewers are going to be offended. We're using kilometres of speed rather than miles per hour.
That is. I mean, that's nearly offensive to us as well, isn't it? To be honest, it's getting close to the bone.
Oh dearie me. Well, speaking of things getting close here, we come back to the battle for third place in the GT category, and Ewan Stitchbury still keeping Thomas Pugh at bay. Jaden Scott, meanwhile, has fallen 8 seconds behind all of this, and well, he's had a long fall back, and in terms of how that's happened, I believe he has caught a bit of traffic, which has led to his demise in this battle, at least for now. But Stitchbury and Pugh pushing each other along, and well, if you are a Thomas Pugh fan right now, I think you're going to be even more excited because he just misses out there as he gets way too close to the back of the DXT Motorsports Ferrari. There we can see one of what is Pugh's teammates there in the GT3, giving him a little bit of a tow to help him along, but under the brakes there and in towards turn number 2 they go. But Thomas Pugh right now getting close, but not quite close enough as they roar the way up towards another lap. Our closest GT battle here, it does seem as though, well, apart from these pockets of battles, I think everyone now just settling down into the rhythm. I get the feeling we'll see some battles later on, but this race now is going to be one of attrition.
And it's going to be one where I think we're going to see drivers start maybe flaking off towards the end in terms of where they find themselves in the order and which battles that they're currently in. It's not a big track though, so they're always going to find someone else on the circuit, whether in class or not, but we are still seeing a couple of the battles, namely this one for P3 in the GTE class, and also for the lead in the GT3 class as well. So still not a long way away from some of these battles really developing. Stitchbury inside line up the corkscrew, going to get that one done, and he's almost being a bit of a bulldozer to help Thomas Pugh here at the moment, isn't he?
Oh, indeed he is. I mean, he's the first one who's got to come up on this traffic, and it's always both a benefit and a curse when you're the leader of a battle. The benefit is you normally do have clear air until you suddenly find somebody in front of you, and you're the one who's got to deal with them first. And well, they had to pick their way past Travis de Flamer, and also, I believe, they're the machine of Archie Williams, who subsequently has lost the place to Matthew Croft as a result of his excursion. Roaring the way onwards right now, and Thomas Pugh here will close, not quite close enough. And of course, this BMW M8 GTE being the last of the V8 powered racing BMWs, because after this one, which twin turbo V8, going to the flat 6-cylinder with a turbo M4 configuration. That's been the trend of BMW over the last decade, to shift away from 8 cylinders to 6. But Pugh right now keeping the V8 very much live, and the same for Stitchbury there with the 8-cylinder 488 Ferrari engine in front. But as they roar the way into the braking zone here for turn number 5 right now, all 8 cylinders of both cars absolutely roaring. But Pugh close. Can he get the run here up the hill towards turn number 6? No, he can't. He just has to stay right there. But if he got any closer, he'd be making contact. But here we go as they make the way over the crest, and this is going to be a golden opportunity for Pugh on the inside, but a bow under braking. Can he get it there? No, he can't. The BMW's brakes just not enough versus the Ferrari. And well, I don't want to compare Stitchbury to a cat, Dara, but if he was a cat, I think he's just used up one of his 9 lives in holding that position. But look at the pain he's facing here. He's got to dive to the inside to get clear of the traffic. And well, Pugh's going to have an easier time versus his Axis Simsport teammate, but traffic is not being kind to you in Stitchbury.
No, but he's just having to almost be, as I said before, the bulldozer for Thomas Pugh. Pugh can just make the moves when the GT3's out of the way, but Stitchbury's having to create the opportunities and create the moves himself, and it's not helping him out too much. And you can see he's lost a couple of seconds to the cars in front on that last lap alone. Pugh just sticking with him, keeping himself very much in the fray, and they've still got a few cars not very far in front of them as well. There's a bit of a gap, a little bit further up, a little bit more cleaner air, but still not easy. They've still got a lap some of the leading GT3s for the first time in this race as well. So difficulties, but time ticking down for Thomas Pugh to make a move, albeit still 24 minutes to go.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of those that leading GT3s, here they are. We literally rotate the camera and we find none other than Christopher Wormsler versus Luis de Silva. And in fact, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, we've had a change of GT3 lead in the pit lane. We've had Wormsler get ahead. I mean, that's happened off camera, but that's going to be a bit of a surprise at the buck of the trend. But Luis de Silva, he's not out of this one yet. He's staying right there as they roll the way down for the corkscrew.
Yep, then let's see, is there a chance, any more chance for Pedro Luis de Silva here? I'm not too sure that there's going to be, as they run their way through in towards the final couple of corners. Turn 1 could be his next best chance, but I'm sure he'd love to have that lead back in the McLaren. McLaren v McLaren battle, of course, here. So they now run their way up towards the line and up towards the start of a brand new lap here at Laguna Seca. Lap times last time by, Christopher Wormsler was just a little bit slower than Pedro Luis de Silva. Pedro Luis de Silva keeping him more than honest at the moment, but he's not able to be close enough to make a move at turn 1. Difficult to make moves around here, though. Turn 1's your primary overtaking spot.
Or indeed, turn one being a very good overtaking opportunity. Otherwise, it really comes down to a good run up towards the corkscrew, or rainy if you're feeling brave enough. But through turn number 4 they come, and as they do, well, both drivers, they've run a bit wide. Wamsler using all the road and a little bit of dirt with it to help him out. But they stay absolutely locking horns for the time being at least. Further down the order, well, we do have a little bit of toe step in here, where we do have a GT3 picking its way past one of the GTEs. That's James Howarth making his way through past Andrew Montine, and will that be for 24th overall. But for the most part, as we do look to the overall positions, we have seen the trend of the GTs leading the way ahead of the GT3s, which is what we'd expect, but there's always a bit of fun. Speaking of fun, side-by-side BMWs here, Dara, in towards the corkscrew, and that is Scotland versus Pugh.
Scotland, who looks like he's just about going to have the run around the outside, and Scotland is going to stay in P4 and make sure that Thomas Pugh can't find a way through. It's going to be difficult, though, as they run their way down the hill. Pugh is the one who has been dropping the time, of course. He was fighting with the Iron Stitchbury, not anymore, and Jaden Scotland's taken full advantage of that as the two BMWs work their way in towards the final turn of the lap. But it is going to be P4 for Scotland for the time being. Pugh's been up and down like a bit of a yo-yo in this race so far, and we'll see how he continues to bounce around in this one.
Oh, indeed, he continues to bounce around. And meanwhile, speaking of bouncing around further down in the GTs, we do have Bostock and Fox fighting for 11th. Here's a quick recap of how they've just swapped places. And, well, Jim Fox, they're bouncing around literally by taking a lot of apex curve there on coming through turn 3. Side by side, the two Porsche 911 RSR drivers went through turn 4, and Bostock on the end and the inside line. Well, Fox was never going to get that back towards turn number 5. I think he could have perhaps gone for it, and Jim Fox in the end missed his braking zone entirely, just as the GTE leader made his way through there. So Jim Fox being caught out by the sausage curbs, and then being caught out by his own braking, and that is how Bostock's moved into 11th for the GTEs as we come back to the Scott and Pugh battle. Now they, right now, continue to push each other on little by little. Jaden Scott, and, well, in his mind at least, will feel as though he wants to hold on to the position. But Thomas Pugh, he's been up, he's been down, he's been around the circuit, and indeed the running order of the top 5 in GT more times than anybody else. And, well, whether this is to get experience or alternatively whether he is right now enjoying some very inconsistent pace and perhaps traffic's not been too kind to him, well, we will see. And Scotland there has to be the bulldozer getting on past, while our GT3s, and well, Pugh just tucks in behind him. No change between them at the moment as everyone heads towards the final 20 minutes of this race. But coming back to the GT3 leaders, well, the two McLarens, they're still nose to tail. They're still pushing each other around very much so. Well, there's plenty to look forward to between them. But meanwhile, that Scott and Pugh battle, we're back to it, Dara, and, well, here they go, too wide up towards the next corner.
That's the inside line now for Scotland on Pugh. Pugh's just going to wash out wide, wash into the gravel, and that's not going to be where he needs to be. He's not going to lose out too much time to any of the cars behind, because, of course, that car directly behind is a lapped car. In fact, it's going to be, I believe, is that John Ludbrook all the way down there? It could very well be. I might be wrong on that one, but a car that's definitely struggling in class, and Scotland's just about going to get some breathing room thanks to that as they work their way towards the corkscrew once again. It is crazy how time is ticking away quickly in this race. Of course, the opening 10-15 minutes felt like they were going by relatively slowly. Not many moves off the start, but it's been a little bit more frantic in the last 10-15 minutes, and that time really does feel like it's evaporating quickly, and it's going to feel like, you know, only a handful of laps until we're really into the final stages of this race.
Oh, indeed, and it's intriguing as well because we've got such a variety of circuits on the calendar for this season. I mean, Daytona in 2 weeks' time for the season opener is going to be a completely different universe of a style of race compared to this. In the fact that Daytona, of course, the road course at the Florida State Circuit, consisting of 80% of the oval at least, with an infield section of hairpins, plus also bus stop chicane. So it's going to be very slipstream dominated, whereas this race at Laguna Seca is more of an indicator perhaps of what could come at the circuit of the Americas in the mid-season, where you do have a much more corner-focused circuit, albeit with a 1 kilometre straight on the back straight, and that will mix things up. But right now we're definitely seeing where I think all the drivers are doing very well, to be fair, to get to grips with their cars, particularly those who've gone to the GTE machines. And, well, this battle for fourth place in the GT class being a great reminder of how they can run very close to each other and how GT racing really is still in its peak on iRacing. But coming back to GT3s, well, the lead battle might be still half a second apart, but right now, Jonas Larsson versus Archie Williams. This is for 5th place in GT3, and Larsson looking up the inside of a Ford Mustang that will feel like a bit of a boat. It's always described as a boat, particularly under braking, but Archie Williams here really under pressure, Dara. He has got the car that's meant to be the best in corners, the Porsche, based on the German company's doctrine of a rear engine, rear wheel drive. But Jonas Larsson here really pushing Williams all the way around this circuit. In fact, you could say if he gets any closer here, it'll be practically on a tow bar pushing him around.
Yeah, it's very, very tight between these two at the moment. As we look back, I should say, from Archie Williams. In fact, it was Chris Jennings, the car I was trying to talk about before, that was involved in the battle between Scotland and Pugh, just behind it, and not Ludbrook, who I said before, of course, because he's out of the race by a long way. But Archie Williams got to be careful, because Larsson nearly dives into the back of him as they run up towards turn 1 once again. Here comes Robin Aston as well. Well, that is not Robin Aston, my apologies. That is Noel, the number 15 GTE car coming through. And of course, the teammates Williams and Noel, I'm sure, will not be holding each other too much when they converge.
Oh, indeed. Well, a little bit of breathing room there for Williams, and the fact that his teammate has got through a big flash of lights there. That's the proverbial driver Morse code for "I'm here, please get ready to let me go." And well, our GT driver thinks about it into turn number 4, but I think decides to actually play the smarter move here, which is to wait until the run up towards turn number 5. And well, in multi-class racing, of course, some disciplines, the blue flags say that the slower class has to immediately get out of the way, whereas here the expectation is the slower class just holds its line and it's on the faster class to make a safe overtake. But going to what's happening down the pit lane, well, there's Hayden Phoenix Miller making his way into lead this race, because we've got Graham Wildmon into the pit lane again, Darren. I think this is now becoming a 2-stop race. If our leaders had to come in with an absolutely incredible gap, and well, a gap that he's been managing so well, then surely 2 stops on the cards, at least for our GT drivers here, as Wildmon makes his way out the pit lane in a Ford GT that right now I think is absolutely untouchable. He's going to need an absolute unholy amount of bad luck here to steal this way away. So it's another smooth pit stop, and back out he goes. Behind, Ewan Stitchbury and James Scotton, they're back fighting each other, and in fact, Scott and Sonny come alive.
Let's see if Scotton can try and get this one even further up the order, because he's now into the top 3 past Ewan Stitchbury, who has lost the position. That car really looking like it's working well at the moment, the BMW in this race. Stitchbury losing out a little bit more time, but this is interesting really to see how it's happened in this way. Next car to overtake is Pedro Luis de Silva on the road for these two, and he's just up in front, and I don't think that's going to be too much of a task, I should say, for Jayden Scotton to have to deal with. I believe they're teammates, aren't they, as they run their way through. No, I might just be saying things, but we've got only 15 minutes left. But you're right about the 2-stop. Really weird to see that, though, because I don't think that's something we expected to see.
No, we didn't quite expect it, but still it's playing out, and it does lead to a little bit more of an interesting longer-term race here, because of course it means, imagine that second pit stop. You've got to pick the right time to come in, and you've also got to make sure you put the right amount of fuel in the car, which some of you may be sat there right now going, well, that's obvious, tell us something a little bit more intelligent. But the thing is, a lot of our drivers here, when they do race, one of the things you do is you normally rely on calculators in order to be able to tell you the amount of fuel. But because these races are time-bound, not lap-bound, the one thing is, if you do have a runaway leader of the overall race, and they are running at a pace which is unexpected, they can suddenly add an extra lap onto the race at very short notice. Some rounds you may find that we end up finishing the race literally a second away from adding another lap on, or conversely, a second after the need to add another lap on. So that's always in the mind of our drivers. You've got to be smart on that strategy. And well, as we do see there, our 3rd and 4th place GTE drivers picking the way past the GT3 leader of Pedro Luis de Silva. Well, the change is all afoot there, and well, they carry on now. Although, speaking about a change of GT3 leader, I think we need to get a replay down of what exactly happened between Luis de Silva and Wamsler, because I don't think we got to see how they changed places again, did we?
I don't think we did. We're going to have to take a bit of a look at that as we run our way towards the end of this race. Don't want to miss too much from this pre-season event. Of course, it sets us up well for the opening round in just 2 weeks' time. It's not been a very long off-season between the European GT Championship and the Americas GT Challenge, and it has been a grand total of 7 days between the finale of last season and this pre-season race. So drivers not able to have too much of a break before we get going again, but different scenarios, different situations, and moves for Jayden Scotton, and yeah, he's up to P3, but is Stitchbury going to come back at him? Not at turn 1 this time.
No, he's not going to come back at him for now, and as they roar the way out the Andretti hairpin, well, Jayden Scotton under pressure, but holding on there, and with that, it gives us an opportunity to come back in time to take a quick look at how the GT3 lead changed hands. here we go. This was Seca to Christopher Wandler leading the class. Came out of turn number 10. Ewan Stitchby looking up the inside of the pair. Oh, that's not going to help anybody out there. And, well, I think ones that might not have expected the GTE driver to suddenly look up the inside. That explains how we did see Stitchby fall down the order a little bit, and that's what upset the apple cart. So, an unfortunate change of lead there, but that's the way it goes, and I think both drivers will learn from that experience in terms of the fact that when a GT commits to a move on the inside of a GT3 to try and put a lap on it, there's no going back at that point, because it's either that or it's a lock-up of the brakes, and it becomes, well, collateral damage at the end of the day. But I'm sure they'll both be having a bit of a chat afterwards, as Jaden Scotton, meanwhile, has dropped Ewan Stitchby for a bit, as Scotton's into the pit Dara. I think he's decided, you know what, I've got a bit... Ooh, that was almost into the wall there on the pit entry.
It was almost into the wall on the pit entry, not what he would have wanted to happen at all, but it's only going to be a short stop, only 12 minutes worth of fuel that need to go into that car, and then he'll be on his way, I'm sure, and going once again. Allows Stitchby to go through, have a little bit of clean air as he's lapping at about the 1 minute 20.5s right now, slower than Pugh behind him, but he's not even in the frame yet. He's that far behind after the mistakes that we saw him make. It is intriguing to see how this strategy is going to work out, because I think a couple of drivers are going to be very close to being able to make it on a one-stop. And it's just whether they're able to do that at any other track, or whether it's just a real hazard of this car that you're likely to have to make a two-stop. We'll have to just wait and see on that one as we progress our way through the season. But yeah, really, really intriguing opening pre-season race of this championship. And for Ian Stitchby, it's been difficult to judge how it's going, because he's been in front and then behind and then in front again, and then now he's off strategy a little bit. It's difficult to judge.
Well, very difficult to judge there as he just picks his way around the Ford Mustang there, and that being the Ford Mustang of none other than John Malerich, as we do see the orange machine there, Flatline Racing, roaring its way on around. And, well, he's had a bit of a challenging day in the sun so far, but still running 10th place in GT3. That's no mean feat, given the competitiveness of this field. And he's still on the lead GT3 lap, or at least for now, as we do have some more cars in on through, including Pedro Luis da Silva, who's taken a second stop. So I think we're seeing 2 stops for GT3 and GTE, but now he's found himself up against none other than Dean Sheesby there, who is a lap down, and, well, the blue flag's waving. I don't know if Sheesby's recognised the fact that he does have Luis da Silva right behind, but I think he's now, I was going to say he's woken up to the fact that's happened. Well, I think Sheesby right now going all in and battling here. He's trying to have a bit of fun. I don't think Pedro Luis da Silva's going to see that as fun, and we'll make his way out the final corner. Sheesby right now has got a bit between his teeth in that number 52, and Luis da Silva is being made to work for this. I think he'll feel as though he's trying to pass on the lead at this race.
Yeah, crazy really, isn't it, when you think about it in that way. But Pedro Luis da Silva is going to be the one controlling the inside line through here, and he's going to make sure that he is ahead as we run our way through. Really, really interesting battle now. I mean, he was in the lead, of course, took pole position, but he's dropped off somewhat, which isn't really what he would have wanted to happen. But we are still waiting to see if anybody drops into his remit in the final 10 minutes or so. And that's what we've come down to. Only about, 7 laps or so left of this race to run, if that. And that's all that we've really got time for. It's really ended quite quickly. That happens in one of these 1 hour races. When it gets to the 90-minute races, you feel like it extends a little bit longer. But thinking about 90-minute races, and GTEs, are they going to have to 3-stop those? Is that going to have to be a full process?
So it's interesting to say that. I've been going back from my notes with regards to the schedule, and I think the pit stop strategy here today has been slightly manufactured just to give our drivers a bit more intrigue. The reason I say that is because I think this season we are expecting the fuel tanks on cars to be restricted to about 60 to 70% of the maximum tank. Here at Laguna Seca today, they've been told they can only put 40% in, and that would be why we're seeing 2 stops. However, what is going to be interesting, this man, Hayden Phoenix Miller, leading currently by 12 seconds. His pace is 2 seconds slower than second place man and the man who's been a superstar all day, Graham Wildmon. However, Dara, if Phoenix... Oh, goodness me. I was about to say if he can go a bit longer and extend the fuel tank, he could win us at the 1-stop. And as soon as I go to say that, he comes into the pit lane. Well, you know what? I'm going to put my faults of strategy back in the box there, because I don't know what I'm talking about. He's proven me entirely wrong.
He's doing something completely different to what we thought he was going to do, but it's going to be a very short stop indeed for Hayden Miller, because he's only going to be fueling for about 5-6 laps, so we'll see where he's able to come out in just a minute. I think he's going to come out ahead of Jaden Scotton quite comfortably here, which is kind of where he was anyway. Ian Stitchby, I think he's gone around once again as well. Yes, he has, so there's not long to go for for him. And actually, there is Hayden Miller coming out of the pit lane. He's really not that far behind. Very short stop indeed for him.
Well, indeed, a short stop, and now he can go back on a crusade to try and get second place. Whilst all this has been happening, meanwhile, what's also quite interesting is looking to GT3s. A driver we haven't really talked about, Chris Jennings. There's been the big story of the two McLarens at the front, and, well, Christopher Wamsler has just made his way into the pit lane. We'll have to wait and see whether Luis da Silva retakes the lead. Jennings, meanwhile, he's been running third place for the majority of this race. Hasn't really had to fight too hard. It's where he started, in fact. He's comfortably up 6 seconds clear of Lucas Finco in fourth. He's really been under the radar here, and, well, with that in mind, just hold the phone a moment, because there is Luis da Silva. Coming out the pit lane is none other than Wamsler. We look to the blimp camera. There we go, Darragh, and this is absolutely neck and neck on strategy. I think Wamsler's just going to have it for now, but Luis da Silva's not too far behind. That traffic he came out into after his second stop, that's been the difference.
Yeah, and Pedro Luis da Silva is going to be the one to have to try and overtake his fellow McLaren. He's got all the work to do in just a few laps now. There's not long to go in this race as we tick on to lap 40 with Graham Wildman just crossing the line. But he did that with about 7 minutes 11 to go, which means that at the rate we're currently going at, that's going to be another 6 laps in this race. We're going to get 6 more laps from Graham Wildman. So these guys will still get those 6 laps. Pedro Luis da Silva, though, with it all to do, and even more now after that little mistake that's cost him about a second.
Well, indeed, that's cost him time. It's also cost him a little bit of track position versus a car that's tucked up the inside of him there. So now Wamsler's going to feel a bit more confident in the fact, and also that is Wamsler's teammate there who's gone up the inside of Luis da Silva. Now, I'm sure that his teammate will not act as a rolling roadblock there to Luis da Silva, but it's always on your mind as a driver when you do see the fellow teammate in terms of what they're going to do, but I'm sure all will be fair between them. Ewan Stitchby's coming out the pit lane, so he served his second stop. He's going to come out just ahead of Thomas Pugh. Well, goodness me, it's almost as if we just re-round the race by the best part of what would be 50 minutes or so, Darragh, because these two were absolutely nip and tuck in the opening stage of the race, and now Thomas Pugh's probably thinking to himself, what do I have to do to get past this Ferrari? I'm sure there'll be a few colourful words in there, which we can't repeat on this broadcast, but Thomas Pugh right now will be looking at this and thinking, okay, I've got to do it for the 3rd time now, and Stitchby will be thinking to himself, okay, game on again. It's almost as if they're having a bit of a duel at Laguna Seca.
It is, isn't it? But there's not long left for it to be finalised and decided. Thomas Pugh has got to get this move done soon if he wants it. Not going to make it up at the corkscrew, but going to take a much nicer line through there, which is going to benefit him on the exit. They dive down the hill, and it is such an aggressive hill at the corkscrew, one of the steepest parts of tarmac in world motorsport of any circuit at all. So difficult to make moves into there, and especially get it slowed down in time, but he's not going to make it into the final corner either. And Ian Stitchby, though, driving on the mirrors clearly, because these are lines that he wouldn't take if he wasn't under pressure, are they?
No, they're not. He really is right now driving that Ferrari and using every inch of the tarmac in order to be able to hold on. But they roll the way down towards the hairpin this time. Well, talking a little bit about these cars, technically speaking, the one big weakness of the BMW, beyond its unique drivetrain, front-engine rear-wheel drive, whereas all its counterparts are mid-engine rear-wheel drive, is the fact that braking-wise, it does have the weakest brakes of all 5 of the GTs out there. When we say weak, in the fact you can't be as aggressive on them, they are very prone to locking up and raising temperature. Stitchby, meanwhile, right now finding that his machine, well, the tyres on that Ferrari are now starting not to be as comfortable as they were early on. He has had to drive that Ferrari quite hard, that being the weakness of the Ferrari, being its tyre temperature range. Well, they come up in towards turn number 6 here. They've got some traffic in front of them. This is not going to help either of them. It will bring Pugh closer, but it will also relegate onto singular lines for a move. We're heading up towards the corkscrew there, and it's going to be another traffic jam formed as they roar the one down. Pugh right now not quite able to get any closer. But as they roar the way through the rainy curve, or Stitchby's going to have to go for a move up the inside, and that being on the 148. And well, that was bold there, but sometimes you've got to be bold to make it happen. And that's a big move there from Pugh behind, who absolutely has to lock up in the 148 GTE there of none other than, I believe, just trying to discern who that was. I think that was Jim Fox. I think Fox being caught out there by Darragh, and I think in the end recognised the fact that these two, Pugh and Stitchby, they're not holding anything back. They don't want anybody between the two of them.
No, not at all. They've only got a couple of minutes to get this one sorted, but Stitchby is the one just about holding on for the time being. Scotland's up the road, he's gone. He's out of the eyes now of these two. He's going to solidify his position in P3 by the end of this race. But Stitchbury is just having to drive on the mirrors right now. He can see that Thomas Pugh is going to be keen to make a move. Pugh, though, can see that Stitchbury is driving on the mirrors. Maybe therefore you can go for a move at a difficult place on the circuit. Just spend your entire time setting up moves, setting up the right lines, and just making sure that Jan Stitchbury is kept guessing on which way you're going to go in every single one of these corners. Look at the run he gets up towards the corkscrew, even just to put your nose to the inside with no intention, can get in the mind of the Welshman in the Ferrari, but nothing going this time by. Nicer line though again. Is there any move to be made? Just not yet, is there?
No move at the moment, but he is trying to put that pressure on as they roar the way towards the end of this lap. We'll see them coming down in towards turn 11, but the run here from Pugh, well, he's going to do something different. He's going to go round the outside. Oh, that's bold. I've not seen that before in a long time. And, well, Pugh in the end doesn't quite get it done, but trying to get into Stitchbury's head. And Thomas Pugh here, well, right now, he's definitely showing to the Welshman in front of him that I have got grip left, right and centre wherever we go, and I can use it as much as I want to. And well, as they make the way through, we need to leave them for a brief moment because we do need to come back to our leaders in GT3. And well, Dara, we don't have a battle for the lead in GTE, but Wansler right now versus Luis da Silva. They've got 2 minutes left on the clock, and well, we are back to how it all began, as it's a look into turn number 1 there for Luis da Silva, but to no avail. But he gets his rival to go deep.
He does. And it means that Pedro Luis da Silva is going to have a bit of a chance as we work our way throughout the final couple of laps in this race. White flag not yet flying as Graham Wildman has just crossed the line once again. There will be 2 more laps to go for him, and which means that there'll be pretty much 3 laps to go for these 2, including the one that we are currently on. So time for Pedro Luis da Silva to try and get this one done, but he is clearly forcing the 4 in front of him to really be driving on his mirrors right now.
Well, throwing the way around, and well, for Christopher Wansler, won't want to be on his mirrors too much. He needs to make each and every corner. There's a bit of an error there from Luis da Silva. It's going to cost him a 10th coming up the hill. That shows you how hard he's pushing. We talked briefly about our overall lead of the GT lead, and we hear your calls there in the YouTube chat. Don't worry, because there is Graham Wildman right now carrying on his way. We'll show you a quick snippet of him, and we will catch him at the finish. That's the promise, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way up towards the GT3 leaders. He's not too far behind them, in fact, but we're just going to leave Wildman to his own devices at the moment, because of course there always is the risk that if we celebrate him early, we put the commentator's curse on him, and he will get 1 more lap after this to crown his pre-season win, should it come that way. But back to our GT3 runners, they'll get this lap, plus I believe 1 more, at least that's our expectation. But coming down towards Andretti, and well, running the way through the left-hander, and Luis da Silva this time, Dara, going a bit deeper, try and look for the cutback perhaps.
Yeah, not going to work out this time, but he's got 1 more attempt at the opening turn if he wants to get it done there. However, it's just not working out in that way for the moment, at least. We will see, though, if there is any chance of him making a move towards the likes of the final couple of corners, maybe even the final turn. It's a heavy braking zone, and if you're desperate, you can go for it there. And Pedro Luis da Silva chasing win, albeit there is no real pride. Well, there is only pride riding on this. There is no sporting result to come out of it if you are able to win. But mistakes creeping in from Christopher. Through goes Pedro Luis da Silva. That was easier than I think we were expecting.
Well, pressure was accumulated, and in the end, well, Pedro Luis da Silva putting the pressure on at Christopher Wansler, and it goes both ways because pressure got to Luis da Silva earlier on in the race and cost him the lead, but right now it's swung back the other way, and well, their battle may come to a pause, as a little bit further back is Chris Jennings, still 5.5 seconds back. But as they rocket their way around, well, where is our leader? Our overall leader is here, and for Graham Wildman, as he makes his way through the last couple of quarters, he took pole position, he absolutely dominated qualifying, and well, on home soil today, the American driver makes his way into the last couple of quarters, and in this pre-season event, there's no points to be scored, but he's definitely made a statement, because Graham Wildman will see the checker flag, and he takes victory here at Laguna Seca in GTE and overall by an absolutely staggering what is 17 seconds over the rest of the field. What a drive from him. We've got some time now before we get to our next driver, and it will be a 2nd place in GTE to Hayden Phoenix Miller as he roars his way to the line. He'll be happy to be the runner-up in the Corvette C8R, and then we will have a further 20 seconds before we do get to your 3rd place man in the GTE category, and it will be Jaden Scotton who heads towards the line. He's got a bit of traffic in front of him, but he's not got too much pressure because Ewan Stitchbury is 6.5 seconds back, but Jaden Scotton is going to complete that top 3 in GTE, and well, as he comes to the checker flag there, 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 spots. Ewan Stitchbury holds on to 4th just ahead of Thomas Pugh in a brilliant battle between the 2 of them. We're going to then shortly have Jesse Paulkanen make his way towards the line. He'll be taking home 6th place as he makes his way on around, but the big question mark behind him is who's going to win GT3, and I think, Darrett, it's going to be Pedro Luis da Silva as they come to the line.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be him as they run their way in towards the final couple of moments of the race. And Pedro Luis da Silva, what a race it was from him. Put enough pressure on Christopher Wamsler that he made the mistake, and Pedro Luis da Silva said thank you very much, took the opportunity when it mattered and has won the race from pole. Not the story of the whole race for him though, was it?
No, definitely not. And that top 3 in the GT3 class, Pedro Luis da Silva ahead of Sigurd, Christopher Wamsler and Chris Jennings. They're the only other GT3 driver to hold on to the lead overall lap, and will 4th and 5th in GT3 going to Archie Williams and Matthew Croft, both of them driving solid races and not quite able to sneak in a 46th turn of the circuit. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of your racing here in the 60 minutes, because we have seen all of our drivers make it to the checker flag, but as they all cool on down, and Pedro Luis da Silva, they'll be celebrating that one. He worked hard for it. Well, we're going to take you through those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, albeit with this being a pre-season event, I think the stewards' inquiries may be a lot more limited unless there's anything absolutely egregious driving standard-wise. But let's get you to those results with the scenic view, and here we go. And in fact, what we're going to do, we're going to start off with our GTs. Over to you, Dara, as the car up on screen.
Yes, it was Graham Wildmore who very quietly went about his business but dominated the field for the Soy Boys Racing team in his Ford Mustang, and he won by 16 seconds ahead of Aidan Miller and Jaden Scotton, who rounded out the podium. Close battle in the end, and all the way through the race between Ian Stitchbury and Thomas Pugh. They were 4th and 5th ahead of Jesse Pulkinen, who was the only other driver within a minute of the race lead. Justin Knoll was the only other driver on the lead lap, with Rob Edgell, Martin Kenyon and Tiago Reiser rounding out the top 10, all a lap down. James Bostock was 11th in a very solid race for him, ahead of Matthew Bacon and, of course, Pete Paeva. Jim Fox and Andy Chell inside the top 15, with everyone except for Chell just the 1 lap down, with Chell 2. Robin Aston 4 laps down, Andre Muntian 15, Sean Clark and Tim Perry 33 and 35 laps down respectively. They didn't really get going too much on that race.
No, sadly they did not, but from the results of GTE to GT3, and I'll walk you through those, and as we can see, Pedro Luis da Silva there taking a victory in the end by 2.7 seconds for GPX Simsport Onyx, for absolutely having to work his tyres off the car in order to do so, and what a battle between him and fellow McLaren driver Sigurd Christopher Wamsler. And in the end, it all came down to a small mistake at turn number 6 with only 2 laps to go. Their strategies were equal, their pace was equal, but in the end, the Briton outrunning the Dane to line. Behind the Panda Spec Motorsports green driver, it was then Axis Simsport Fire's Chris Jennings, with a bit of a lonely, solitary 3rd place in GT3, but he'll be smiling about that one. And then the rest of the field didn't end up a lap down as a result of the GTE overall finishing lap, with Archie Williams there 4th for SJS Racing, a solid job from the Porsche driver, ahead of Axis Simsport Ice's Matthew Croft. In 6th, Jonas Larsson for Flatline Racing X in the Ford Mustang that definitely made its muscle known, ahead of Ellis Racing's Dean Tyler, who had a very quiet race, Tyler, but the American driver there putting in a solid performance. He's going to be one to watch out for, we reckon, in the season. Lucas Finco was behind him for the wrong stuff in the Acura in 8th, ahead of fellow Corvette driver, Panaspec Motorsports Blue, John Eversole, and then it was the Englishman James Howarth who rounded off your top 10 in the Dexterous Motorsports Quamar Ford Mustang. He was 2 laps down, the same there for Phoenix Racing Red's Grant Miller, and also for John Malorich. And behind the Soy Boys Racing driver, it was then 7 laps down to Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club, who definitely got his elbows out with many a driver today. Now, unfortunately, we did see retirements from the following GT3 drivers over the distance for Travis Duflamer, Ashley Brooks, Rhys Saunders, Rowan Paunier, John Lebret and Alec Torres. And that's how our GT3 is finished. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us through all the race results, and we are going to be back in about 5 minutes' time for some post-round interviews, I think, Dara, with our drivers. And, well, I'm sure there's going to be many opinions from our drivers as to what exactly that race was like and what we can expect from them from the season. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a few of them that can have a good idea of how this season's going to go. I think they're going to be pleased about how this evening's gone. There's not too many drivers that had some issues, so it'll be nice to get a word from a couple of them and just see where their minds are.
Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to step away, but we'll be back in about 5 minutes' time for post-round interviews. We will see you very shortly.
of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn one, side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plurg could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Obliga defend going into the chicane? Is Plurg going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last, and Obliga moves over to the entry into the chicane? Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Catrali all don't get out Raj Harper either. 2 by 2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphreys. Also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Cali Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial. One hour will be on the clock as the pace car is about to roll back in. GT3, so many of them about to get racing. GT4 is distant behind as well. A brand new season is about to get going here at the Saxon Ring. It's ESR's GT European Championship, and Anton Kalo will lead us to green for the opening time this season. Jason Baxter and Jenny Tehar just in behind as the lights are on. The green flag flies, and there's a couple of drivers pulling out immediately of the pack. 3 wide, nearly 4 wide into the opening turn, with Denzel Clarkson trying to find an inside line. Jenny Tehar as well.
More, he's got Craig Hewlett in P11 just coming down the pit lane now with Henry Garcia, so this is going to end up being quite a tight battle. If they're going to also have Pedro to deal with, he would just be coming out in front of them. Yeah, he's a little bit further down the road, so these two are going side by side through a very, very tricky section. Looks like Craig's got the better of it done for the moment.
Seconds in the pit strategy, whether it's a 20-minute overcut, 20-minute undercut, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Jenny Tehar and Jason Baxter are fighting it out for the lead of the overall race. Baxter trying to make his way through. It'll have to be an outside line into turn 2 where a GT4 sits on the racing line. That's the number 14 that they have to negotiate their way around. But as they run through turns 2 and through turn 3, they don't have to now worry about that GT4 any longer, and can continue working their way down a long way, and it can help you build in things like GT3, maybe some prototype cars as well. But yeah, it's so impressive to see him doing so well at the front of the field. Joe Glass getting himself, his teammate I should mention, as I said. Oh, still tries into that. That's a send from Dave Van Dam very late on the brakes into turn 1, but he's got it stopped from the apex. That's an incredible move. Very, very surprising for Joe Glass to find a car on his inside there, but effective for Dave Van Dam, and he has caught Joe Glass napping.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with some of our drivers who volunteered their time. And we're going to be kicking off with a man who's absolutely led the way today, and Dara is going to take us away with him. It's none other than your GTE winner for Soy Boys Racing, Graham Wildermon, who now joins us in the interview room. And over to you, Dara.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Welcoming then, Graham. Congratulations on the win tonight, first of all. P1 in qualifying, P1 in the race. All went pretty smoothly for you. Of course, no points that you could win tonight, but what are the positives that you can take from this going into the season, because you've really started off strongly?
Yeah, definitely. It was a great race, a lot of fun out there. I think we're just gonna try to keep the momentum going. Ford is sometimes a temperamental car to drive, but today it was all locked in.
Yeah, talk to us more about that choice for the Mustang. What is it about the car that really made you pick it for the season?
Honestly, I just have always loved the Ford GT. Out of all the GTE cars, it's the one I've gravitated to. I know it's not the choice pick of the field, but something about it, man. I just love it.
It's worked out very well for you tonight. Looking forward to the season, then, of course, we've got a lot of variants in terms of the tracks that are coming up. And, of course, we've got the 16 and 90-minute races to think about as well. What are you looking forward to particularly? You're looking forward to some of the tighter, twisty tracks like we have here at Laguna Seca, maybe some more open tracks like we see at Daytona or Sebring. And what about the 16, 90-minute races? Where do you stand on those?
So definitely looking more to the ones where I can stretch my legs. That's really where the advantage is in this car. If I trim it out, basically nobody can catch me on the straights. So Daytona and Sebring definitely going to be some highlights here, but got to go back and do some testing for these longer races, see what we're looking at for tire strategy. I don't know if we end up needing another set or not, but we'll find out when we get there.
Yeah, we absolutely will. But congratulations, Graham, tonight. Fantastic result for you to kick off, to kick off the season. Maybe no points on the board just yet, but definitely confidence to gain into the first race in a couple of weeks. But thanks for joining us. Before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to on the stream?
Oh yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Matt. I know he's out there commenting in the chat, so I want to say hi to him. And yeah, hopefully see more of you guys this season.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Congratulations again, and yeah, speak to you in a couple of weeks. By the looks of it.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Graham Wilburn there. Great to speak to him, Paul, especially after such a successful race.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you can hear it in his voice. He's very happy of how today's gone. Everything has just completely clicked together, and there's no complaints from him at all. Really a man who seems to be in control. And it was interesting to hear there about the fact that he's looking for the races where he's able to extend the Ford GT a bit more over the distance. I mean, I get the feeling that perhaps today's gone against the trend. Perhaps he wasn't expecting to be as strong as he was today. That's what I would take from that interview.
Yeah, I agree with you, but he was that strong regardless. And to be fair, by him saying that he's looking forward to the more open tracks, that's slightly ominous, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. A bit of honesty there, but perhaps he's laying down that marker, and I think he will be getting into the minds of some of his rivals as to what they can expect going forward. But I think with that, what we can expect going forward right now is some more interviews. And ladies and gentlemen, we will be back in about 10 to 15 seconds with our next interviewee. We will be right back. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it's now time to come to our next interviewee, and we're going to be having a word with a GT3 driver in the form of Dean Tyler. Good evening to you, Dean. In the Triple Three, in a GT3, threes are the theme, and qualifying 33rd and finishing 22nd, albeit more relevantly for yourself. 7th place in the GT3 class.
Yeah.
Looking good out there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm relatively new to league racing, and I just wanted to keep my nose clean, get some decent laps in, and it seemed like I was able to do that. Made a pretty gutsy call on lap, I think it was 20. Let's see, what was that? Lap 26. I did my splash and dash as soon as that pit window opened, so I could finish the race. I saw the cars in front were heading into some traffic, so I was like, hey, I see on the track map, maybe I can get some clean air, and it ended up working. So I did lose probably about 7 to 8 seconds after a self-spin after that point. But if I had not have done that, I probably would have ended up around P5. So I'm extremely pleased with the result.
Oh, you definitely sound it. Although I have to ask, what made you pick the Corvette Z06 for this season?
I just love. So I used to drive the Mustang all the time. I'm a Ferrari guy as well in the GT3 class. For some reason, the Corvette just speaks to me. I hate how understeery it can be, but if you're able to manage that, I think you can be quick in it. And I'm, you know, as an American, you got to represent the American V8s, right? I just wish the cabin sound didn't sound like a Hoover vacuum cleaner, but yeah.
Oh, fair play, fair play. I do know that's one of the critiques of its wonderful V8 engines, the fact that it's not quite as sonorous as perhaps other cars, such as the Mustang, but still, you made it raw here around Laguna Seca, and strategy worked out for you today, no doubt about it. But going into the season ahead, because the only points scored today were proverbial brownie points in terms of impressing other drivers, which of the rounds of the season are you most looking forward to in terms of circuits, perhaps, length for a race? Just take us through a couple.
Yeah, definitely. Let me find the calendar here to refresh my memory. I think number one is for sure going to be Daytona. I think Daytona is going to be an interesting race with the GTE, GT3 categories, kind of multi-class situation we have going on. Of course, the GTE being straight line, more efficient and obviously more powerful. It's going to make the infield that much more interesting with the way they have to brake in comparison to the GT3. So Daytona, I think, is a good opportunity. Sebring is going to be awesome. VIR is always good, no matter what. It's a tight track, but it always brings chaos and always brings a good race. And then, of course, Road America. Those are definitely the top tracks I'm looking forward to.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing what you can do at those, plus the remainder of the calendar, Dean. But just before we do potentially let you go for this evening, I mean, you've been a star today, but is there anybody else you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to who have been stars in their own right for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my teammate Pete. Pete kind of started LS racing in general. We're just a good community of people that, no matter what your IR is, there's always people to race with. There's always people to kind of bounce ideas off of setup wise and line wise. And it's a great community, and I'd recommend anybody to check it out. But Pete, allows us to basically do this. He doesn't, of course, give us permission or anything, but he provides the landscape that we can do this at on a comfortable level. And man, it's so much fun. It's a privilege to be able to do something like this.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's great to hear. And I do love the focus on the team spirit there, particularly from Pete Piver. And well, Dean, with that, thank you very much for joining us for a quick interview this evening. Well done, your result. And we look forward to seeing you at Daytona in 2 weeks' time and seeing what you can deliver in the US state of Florida.
Thanks, guys.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from none other than Dean Tyler and, well, Dara. He sounded very upbeat. He was very happy about his strategy. I love the way he locked in immediately with regards to the fact that he nailed it on that first pit stop. I mean, that goes to show you a man who's in the zone. He's got it right today, and I think now he's very confident going into the season ahead. Yeah,
and that's what you need as a driver, isn't it? That confidence and that, boost of self-assurance really going into a season like this. Not what we just saw in that replay with the car spinning around. That's not what you need. That wasn't Dean going around. But it's really important to have that confidence, that backing of yourself as you run through a season, particularly in a new format of season as well as this is. So good for Dean and good for him really to have a good confidence going into the season, isn't it?
Oh, 100%, and we're taking that confidence forward. He will, but we're going to move forward with confidence now to our final interview. And well, ladies and gentlemen, keep guessing who it's going to be. We'll be back in about 10 to 15 seconds for our final interview of the evening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time for our final interview, and we're going to be having a chat with another GT driver, second place man, Hayden Phoenix Miller, as he joins us in the interview, and over to Dara to have a chat with Hayden.
Yeah, Hayden, welcome in. Congratulations on the result in the end. P2 was a really, really quite strong finish for you in that GTE class. Firstly, of course, you've been here for quite some time in ESR. This isn't the first time we've had a chat. How are you finding this GTE in this format?
I'm finding it fine, to be honest. It's definitely a bit different to the Corvette GT3 I'm driving so far in season 9. Jumping in and then instantly hitting on the brakes, forgetting there's no ABS isn't really the best form of slowing the car down. But yeah, I mean, when I noticed the new season get announced, because I personally thought it was going to be a second season at EGT, so when I seen this get announced, I was interested, so I started looking for drivers and started to recruit in Phoenix Racing. So yeah, it's been fine. Partnered up with Bobby Moss for the GT3s, so we'll see how it goes. But first initial thoughts is, yeah, it's not bad.
And that's really the important thing, isn't it, for you, and to go into a new season, of course, with the Phoenix Racing team. But, I think, of course, with this being a slightly different format to what we often see in the GT3 on Thursday night, but, of course, similar to what you had last season in the European GT Championship, what are you looking forward to most about this series? Is it going to be the more open circuits, the more famous circuits, the likes of Daytona and Sebring, or the tighter circuits? And then, of course, we've got those 60, 90-minute races. Where do you stand on your preferences going into the season?
I think it's mostly the multi-class. I think the multi-class on the longer races, it brings in strategy to how much do I fuel save, or do I push it and then box earlier so I don't have to deal with traffic, or it's all they all add up, to be honest. It's just the multi-class with the longer racing. I've started to take more enjoyment than sprint races in.
Yeah, and I think there's always definitely an argument for that. Definitely an argument to have that really be a key factor in some of these series, which is great to hear. But realistically, what are your ambitions going to this season? You going for the title?
Well, I think the title's a far reach with the competition I've seen in practice so far, and with other drivers potentially not here tonight that will be here in round one. So obviously I'm not going to say I'm not going to give it my all, but we'll just couple more setup tweaks, learning the car better, getting more comfortable with it. So it's more focused on the team championship than drivers for me. If I've got a shot for the drivers, sure, I'll go for it. But at the end of the day, if I'm not going to be going anywhere in the drivers, I'm going to be doing the team game.
Yeah, and that's going to be a really important factor, I think, for the rest of the season. So glad to hear that. Before we let you go, though, Hayden, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to on this stream?
Just shout out to my dad, Grant Miller, in the GT3 classes. But I don't know how many hours of effort into testing for both leagues, recruiting all the drivers for Phoenix Racing. I think we've went from just me and him to a total of 9 for ESR Season 9. Just a huge shout out to him for all the effort and all the passion to get into this league.
Good to hear. Thank you, Hayden, as well, from that. And thank you for joining us as well in the interview booth after the pre-season race. We really do appreciate it. Good luck for the opening race in a couple of weeks. We might speak to you after that.
Thank you. See you.
Hayden Miller, the final driver that was waiting or has been in the interview booth tonight. Paul, great to get a word from him. And even though he was quite comfortably in P2, there's still some hope from him, isn't there, coming into the season?
Oh, indeed. And I do love the way it's interesting he's tried not to set too high expectations. They're really saying about the fact that given the caliber of the competition, he's not setting himself the target of chasing the GT Drivers' Championship. His focus, first and foremost, is on the teams. And that was really, I think, the crux of his interview, talking about his dad there, Grant, really expanding the Phoenix Racing team. He's very team-driven, it is Hayden, as you'd expect from a family team. But I get the feeling, Darragh, he might just, as the season goes on, he might be one of those drivers we have to keep an eye on, because he says he's focused on the Team's Championship, but I wonder whether if he starts getting a sniff of the points in the Drivers' Championship, that could become his focus. I mean, it's to the mutual benefit of the team, but I just wonder whether he might be setting himself just a little bit low on the expectation side.
To be fair, I think that the way that this series works, it's intriguing, really, isn't it? Because you can't have two drivers in the same class. So realistically, you can't help each other out. It is an individual team championship, if that makes any sense. You can't really work together. So it is just based off which two drivers have done best in their own, constituents championships. So I think focusing on yourself really can help the team. I mean, you look back at the Minecraft Racing team for the European GT Championship just a couple of weeks ago. The Teams Championship, the Pro Teams Championship, was won by Yannis Hilbert and, of course, by Bobby Moss in different classes. Didn't really have necessarily much cohesion within the team, and yet they still won the championship. So there's always that to think about, I think.
Oh, 100%. Well, we'll have to leave our analysis and thoughts there, and that wraps up our interviews for this evening. And we just need to give a big shout out there to our 3 interviews for this evening. Firstly, Soy Boys Racing, Graham Wildman, your GTE class pole sitter and winner today. Really the man of Laguna Seca. We also heard from Dean Tyler for LS Racing in the GT3 class, with a great start from 14th all the way to 7th. And we just heard there from Hayden Phoenix Miller, the man who started 5th in GTE, but gradually ascended to 2nd place. A big thank you to them all for joining us for interviews this evening, and we look forward to plenty more interviews as we make our way into the main campaign. But as we now get ready to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, it definitely has been a pre-season event to be enjoyed. But of course, there's plenty to be enjoyed here at Evolution Sim Racing, isn't there, Dara? Because this is just one of many series that if somebody sat there right now thinking, I want to be on the grid, I want to prove myself to be a master of GT3, GTE or other kinds of machinery, well, there's plenty going on here at Evolution Sim Racing.
Yeah, there is. There's nothing, or there's never a time to be bored in ESR, and with more and more things starting up as well, it's a great time to get involved. So it's great to see so many people involved, of course, with the two splits that we have in the GT3s on a Thursday night, and all of the new seasons that are coming up soon. It's been a really exciting time, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm just getting excited at the thought, not just of Season 10 of the GT3s open up for sign-ups with Season 9 currently underway, also the fact we've got this wonderful America's GT Challenge Series, but also, I mean, do you have any inkling what's new on Mondays? I mean, are we allowed to talk about that, or is it hush-hush at the moment?
I don't know. I'm going to stay deathly quiet for fear that James Bostock's going to come around and hit me with a stick, because he has my address. So I'm going to stay tight-lipped. No one's going to get anything through me on that one. I might just play Dumpool. I might just go with that tack. You know, what's a Monday?
Indeed, what is a Monday? I think I'm going to go with you on that one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it means we don't have to wake up tomorrow because there's no such thing as a Monday anymore. We go straight to Tuesday afterwards, but it's never been a better time to be on the grid at Evolution Sim Racing, and to be on the grid with us. All the invite details are available there to our Discord, the beating heart of the Evolution Sim Racing community. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include, of course, Trophy AI, the title sponsor of this series, alongside Sim Coach, where you can unlock your true potential as a sim racer. Also, a big mention there to Carme, Modern Technology, GP2 Group, and also a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for continuing to recognise us here as Evolution Sim Racing as a recommended community, and we're very grateful for that status, and we look forward to continuing working in harmony with Motorsport UK's esports division. But without further ado, that brings today's broadcast to a close, and in 2 weeks' time, we will be raising the curtain officially on round number 1 of the America's GT Challenge Championship here at Evolution Sim Racing, with round number 1 going to the Daytona International Speedway in the US state of Florida. I'm excited for it. Dara, I get the feeling you're excited for it as well. And when can we catch all of it?
We can catch it in 2 weeks' time. Here, same time, same place on the ESR YouTube channel. It's going to be such an exciting way to open up the season. Daytona is a very, very famous track, and one that these cars are going to suit beautifully.
Oh, 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have been your commentators, Paul Walsh and Dara Thacker. This has been Evolution Sim Racing, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.